Chapter 843. The sandstorm grew stronger, as though countless flying insects were covering their heads. Looking up, they couldn't see the sky, and it was difficult to even open their eyes. It happened so suddenly that there were almost no signs. No one expected a third party to disrupt the battle between two Heavenly Dao realm experts at the peak of Maple Mountain. Who was he? What was he trying to do? To kill two Heavenly Dao realm experts in one fell swoop. Even if it was a sneak attack, it probably wasn't an easy task to accomplish such a grand goal, unless he was also a Heavenly Dao realm expert. It was so blazing that it felt like a sun had suddenly emerged from beneath their feet. The white light illuminated the night sky, illuminating the entire Maple Mountain range as though it was daytime. The intense light was like a gigantic firework that disappeared in a flash, leaving behind a huge vacuum in midair. The sand in that area was dispersed without a trace, and even time seemed to have frozen. Humans could change nature, but they would ultimately be changed by nature. Soon, the vacuum was filled with a deeper sandstorm. The sandstorm, which was rarely torn open, once again shrouded the world. It was so oppressive that it made it hard for people to breathe. Fang Yan, Yi Rou called out anxiously. She was the first to notice the anomaly in the sandstorm, but before she could do anything, the sandstorm had already lit up with a white light, as though someone had dropped an atomic bomb. When the white light vanished and the sandstorm continued, she flew towards the explosion site. Master, although Gongsun Qi's reaction was slower than Yi Rou's, he knew what had happened since he had been paying attention to the battle. There was actually another person who dared to interfere in the battle between two Heavenly Dao realm experts. Furthermore, he had charged into the battle without any qualms. Even if you're shameless, you should at least want your life, right? Through the previous exchange, Gongsun Qi knew how strong Fang Yan and his master, Divine Dragon, were. Even though he was in the periphery of the battlefield, he would occasionally be pressured and assaulted by the forces. It was enough to make him feel uneasy. If he were to fight Fang Yan or his master, he would probably be crushed to smithereens in a single round. This was the suppression of realms. You wouldn't even be able to see the trajectory of his attacks, and you would already have to bid farewell to the world. This was what happened after such cruelty. Didn't Fang Yan experience something like this when he fought with his master at the very beginning? Although the top of his head was once again covered by the sandstorm, it was as if nothing had happened. There was no white light, and there was no explosion that resounded through the mountain top. However, everything that had just happened was recorded on the ground of the explosion site. Not even a blade of grass grew, and the rubble turned into powder. It was just like the sandpit that appeared in Oasis. There was no life in the sandpit except for the tiny grains of sand. There was no one either. Fang Yan and the dragon god disappeared. The third person who came with the sandstorm like a lone nighthawk also disappeared. Master, Master, Gongsun Qi stood in the huge stone pit and shouted. He turned to look at Yi Rou and asked, where did they go? He knew that Yi Rou's realm was higher than his. She must know what he didn't know. Wait, Yi Rou said. What are we waiting for? Where did Master and the others go? Who was that man in black? How could he have the guts to disrupt this decisive battle? What happened just now? Gongsun Qi didn't finish his words. Because he found that when he was speaking, the atmosphere at the scene became tense again. Two dark figures stood on the huge stones in the east and west directions in the distance. Because the sandstorm was too strong, the visibility was reduced, and it was impossible to see their facial expressions clearly. There was another person who landed not far from the sandpit and was looking at Yi Rou with a smile. Are you okay? Yi Rou looked at Fang Yan and asked. I'm fine. Fang Yan shook his head with a smile. This drama is getting more and more exciting. Gongsun Qi looked at Fang Yan and asked, Fang Yan, who was the guy who sneaked up on us? I don't know who it was, Fang Yan said with a smile. But you will know soon. Gongsun Qi wanted to ask more, but he found that Fang Yan had turned to face the two men in black on the east and west sides. He felt a little disappointed. After all, he wasn't qualified to be an opponent at their level. Fang Yen looked at the black shadow shrouded in a black robe in the west and said with a smile, "There aren't many people in this world who would dare disrupt a battle between two heavenly Tao realm experts. And there might only be one person who would have such black-bellied thoughts, Mr. Black Dragon. I've admired you for a long time. Are you still unwilling to take off your black robe and let us fans see your true appearance?" The black-robed man in the east said with a hoarse voice, like the sound of sand colliding in the air, "Even if I were to take off my mask and let you see my true appearance, how would you know who I am?" Fang Yen was taken aback and said, "I don't know, but someone else will know." Divine Dragon seemed to be in a good mood despite his hard work. He said in a relaxed tone, "I've never seen Black Dragon's true appearance either. I'm afraid there aren't many people in this world who have seen it, right? All you need to know is that I'm Black Dragon." Black Dragon's tone was as arrogant as ever. "Anything else is meaningless to you." "That's true." Fang Yen nodded with a smile. "Since you have already admitted that you are Black Dragon, then your identity is confirmed, Mr. Black Dragon. You wish to kill us?" "That's right." Black Dragon answered without hiding anything. "Why?" Fang Yen asked. "Don't you think that there are too many heavenly Tao realm experts?" Black Dragon said with a serious look. Of course, you couldn't see his expression, but you could tell from his tone that he was asking this question in an extremely serious manner. "There are more and more people, and things are getting more and more noisy. It's really a little vexing. If we can kick two of them out at once, wouldn't this world be a lot quieter?" Fang Yen thought about it seriously as he looked at Divine Dragon and said with great difficulty, "I think what he said makes a lot of sense. Didn't you have the same thoughts back then? Back then, the three of you were the most dazzling warriors in all of Huaxia." Black Dragon appeared and disappeared mysteriously, making it difficult to find his tracks. It was even more difficult for him to resist your influence in the mortal world. Only the Azure Dragon, Mo Qingdi, had the same feelings and ambitions as you, and his influence far exceeded yours. You challenged the Azure Dragon and tore his tendons. The Azure Dragon perished, and for decades, you were the only one shining in the sky, like the only star in this world. Divine Dragon's expression was solemn as he pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "Back then, I hadn't seen through the desire for fame and fortune, so I still ended up in a disadvantageous position. Men leave their names behind, and geese leave their voices behind. Life is short, not more than 100 years. Who doesn't want to leave something in this world for future generations to remember?" For the title of number one in the world, there are plenty of people who would sever their opponent's limbs and kill their entire family, much less tore off their opponent's tendons. Compared to those people, you are already considered benevolent. Divine Dragon looked at Fang Yen and said, "The Azure Dragon doesn't think so." "Of course." Fang Yen nodded with absolute certainty and said, "If I were the Azure Dragon, would definitely want to take revenge and kill your entire family. You see, no matter what level we've reached, no matter what realm we've stepped into, we're still mere mortals. We can't let go of fame and fortune, nor can we let go of grudges," Divine Dragon said with a smile. "If someone scolds me, I'll respond with a sentence. If someone punches me, I'll return with a few kicks. Is this considered the heavenly axiom?" Fang Yen asked. Divine Dragon thought for a moment and said, "Following the heavenly axiom is naturally the heavenly axiom. Naturally, this is the highest achievement of our Tai Chi," Fang Yen said with a smile. "So, I've never felt that it's a dirty and shameful thing to take revenge on someone who has a grudge against them. On the contrary, those who bear a blood feud would abandon it in the name of the heavenly axiom, losing their passion and temperament, and going against the heavenly axiom." "You're a sentimental person," Divine Dragon said. But Fang Yen looked at the Black Dragon and said, "We have no grudge against him, yet he came here to kill us. Isn't this too much of a bully? For his own axiom, he wants to destroy our axiom. Is this also the heavenly axiom?" Divine Dragon calmly looked at the Black Dragon and said, "This is not the heavenly axiom, this is the demonic axiom. The sword in your hand is called Exorcist, then let's use this Exorcist sword to get rid of this demon," Fang Yen suggested. You knew I was coming? The black dragon solemnly asked. He used a special concealment method to conceal himself, even his breathing and heartbeat could not be heard. Moreover, the sandstorm tonight was extremely strong. He had adjusted the frequency of his movement to match the speed of the sandstorm. There was a 90% chance of a successful sneak attack, so how could he be intercepted by the two of them at the most crucial moment? If they hadn't known in advance, how could they have simultaneously stopped at the critical moment and drawn his Gale Tempest Bringer over? If his Gale Tempest Guide had enveloped their bodies in the sandstorm, or exploded right next to them, Fang Yen Divine Dragon would be either dead or heavily injured. But they managed to dodge it, and their combined attack made him suffer in silence. Although he managed to dodge Divine Dragon's desperate strike, his back was slapped by that bastard Fang Yen. Even now, his qi and blood were still in turmoil, and he couldn't circulate his energy smoothly. That was why the black dragon asked such a question. Fang Yen laughed heartily and said, "We're the male and female leads of this show, and you're the best supporting actor." Although the best supporting actor appeared a little late, I knew he would definitely appear. Chapter 844. When Fang Yen mentioned that there would be new friends joining them, Divine Dragon was doubtful as well. What puzzled him was that this was a battle between Heavenly Dao Realm experts. Typical warriors would be injured just by approaching slightly, much less joining. This was also the reason why they didn't announce the location of the battle. Instead, they chose the most dangerous peak of Empty Maple. They didn't wish for the curious commoners to climb up only to be blown back down by a gust of wind. Even his disciple, Gong Sun Chi, didn't have the right to join. Forcefully taking action would only be asking for trouble. Then, how many people in the world had the right to participate in the battle at Flying Peak? Divine Dragon's first reaction was to hope that Azure Dragon wouldn't underestimate his enemy. Could it be that Azure Dragon had returned from the land of extreme frost? Had he really found the legendary and extremely rare ice dragon bloodline? Of course, Fang Yen also had some trust in Fang Yen. At their realm, there was no need for meaningless lies to deceive others. If they came, they came. If they didn't, they didn't. Playing petty tricks would only make them look down on them. It wouldn't be of any use. However, he never expected that someone would really come. Furthermore, it was one of the three dragons of Hua Xia, Black Dragon, who was equally as famous as him. Upon hearing Black Dragon's question, Divine Dragon wished to know why Fang Yen would have such a guess. "It's because your reason for coming to kill us isn't simple," Fang Yen said with a smile. "If it's just because you think there are too many Heavenly Dao Realm experts, which is why you want to kick out too, then I would think that you are a man, the most admirable person I have ever seen in my life." Clearly not. Before you came to Empty Maple, the generals Jiang Shifu met you. Isn't that so? Black Dragon fell silent for a long while before saying, "There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. I shouldn't be surprised that you know this secret." "How much did he give you?" Fang Yen said with a smile. To be able to bribe a Heavenly Dao Realm expert to be a fighter for the generals, he must have invested quite a bit, right? If everyone's goal is the same, then everything else is secondary, Black Dragon said in a deep voice. "I don't like you. So I'm going to kill you." "You're right. Although your motives aren't pure, it's also a fact that you think there are too many Heavenly Dao Realm experts. After all, in just a few months, Heavenly Dao Realm experts have sprung up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Our Fang family has two more." At this point, Fang Yen looked back at Yi Ro sweetly. It felt good to have a strong support behind him no matter what he did. In the past, he was afraid of the dragon god and hoped that he would never run into him before the old drunkard Mo Qingdi returned. The first time he met the dragon god in the courtyard of the Xian division, his little heart was beating very fast. He was afraid that the dragon god would kill him with a sword. Now, he was at the Taiji water overflow realm, while his fiancée, Yi Wen, was at the Heavenly Dao realm. As long as the two of them were together, no matter if it was the dragon god or the undying black dragon, he would not feel the slightest bit of fear in his heart. Even if the two of them joined forces, of course, that was impossible. Are you showing off? Black Dragon looked at Fang Yen and asked. The north wind howled, and the sand and stones made a rustling sound. However, the conversation between the three of them was not affected at all. It was as if they were chatting in the backyard of a private house with beautiful weather. Showing off? Fang Yen grinned and said, if you say it's showing off, then it's showing off. You're the elder, I'll listen to you. Black Dragon was silent for a few seconds again. He looked at the dragon god and said, Junior apprentice brother, it seems like we've been too low-key all these years. Even these kids who haven't even grown out their fur can look down on us. Junior apprentice brother? Fang Yen looked at the dragon god in shock, then at the black dragon. The two of them were actually apprentice brothers? Why hadn't he heard of it before? If they were really apprentice brothers, then, what kind of dire situation would it be today? This was a question that Fang Yen had to consider. Not only Fang Yen, but even Yi Ro and Gong Sun Chi were astonished. Yi Ro pricked up her eyebrows and silently stood behind Fang Yen. Regardless, they had two Heavenly Dao realm experts on their side. If they were to really fight it out, the outcome was still unknown. Even if they couldn't beat them, escaping wouldn't be a difficult task. However, why did the dragon god have to be Black Dragon's apprentice brother? If such news were to spread, wouldn't it cause a stir in the entire martial arts world? Gong Sun Chi's mouth opened wide, but he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly closed his mouth. It wouldn't be good if Master saw it. But why did he have an uncle master? And this uncle master was Black Dragon of the Three Dragons of Huaxia? Black Dragon of the Three Dragons of Huaxia and Divine Dragon of the Three Dragons of Huaxia were apprentice brothers. Then, what was the secret behind Azure Dragon's death? Gong Sun Chi wasn't the only one with such thoughts. Fang Yen and Yi Ro had the same thought. Two of the three dragons were apprentice brothers, and the only Azure Dragon had been defeated by Divine Dragon. Everyone felt that there was something fishy going on. Divine Dragon clearly didn't expect Black Dragon to expose their relationship at this moment. He sighed and said, Nanshuan, why do you have to do this? We haven't seen each other for years. At our age, the title of apprentice brother has long vanished. Why mention this in front of these children? No matter how long it's been, apprentice brother is still apprentice brother. Don't you want to acknowledge me as your apprentice brother? Black Dragon's voice was filled with mockery. But it's true. In terms of martial cultivation, apprentice brother is a latecomer. It makes me feel ashamed. Nanshuan, did you rush over just to catch up with me? Of course not. Black Dragon Li Nanshuan laughed. His voice was like the chirping of a night bird. It was hard to hear. Back then, apprentice brother helped me defeat Mo Qingdi and picked out his tendons, turning him into a cripple. I haven't had the chance to thank apprentice brother properly. There's no need for thanks. Go down the mountain. Divine Dragon said in a deep voice. I can't leave for now. Black Dragon Li Nanshuan wasn't angered. He lifted the hat on his head, revealing a pale and ugly face that left a deep impression. This was because there was a big black hole on both sides of his cheeks, as if something sharp had pierced through them. His eyes were turbid, but they were extremely sharp, like a pair of rusty copper needles. When he looked at you, it would make you feel extremely uncomfortable. This was very different from other Heavenly Dao realm experts who reverted to their original state. Black Dragon Li Nanshuan looked at Fang Yen and said, At least, let me finish what I promised to do first. Divine Dragon tried his best to stop him and said, You know that this is the final battle between me and Fang Yen. I know. Black Dragon Li Nanshuan nodded and said, That's why I came. I wanted to take the opportunity to kill this punk, but I didn't expect him to be prepared. However, since I'm here, how can I return empty-handed? Why are you in such a hurry to kill me? Fang Yen looked at Li Nanshuan and asked. I don't want to kill you. I just want to kill Azure Dragon again. Don't underestimate your enemy. Li Nanshuan's eyes burned like a blazing fire. Even the sand and stones that covered the sky could not hide it. Unfortunately, he didn't return. Since he didn't return, it proved that he died in the land of extreme frost. I can't take revenge on him, so I can only take revenge on his family. I've been waiting for you to grow faster and mature, to become everyone's hope, to become the rising star of Nejiang. Then, at that time, I'll kill you. I wish for you to grow, but I don't wish for you to grow to a height that makes people lose control. So, when I learned that those ox noses wanted to teach you the Taiji diagram, I barged into Monkey Mountain to snatch it and destroy it. I never expected that you would be the one to benefit from it. Doesn't it feel good to enter the water overflow realm? I quite like it. Fang Yen looked at Li Nanshuan thoughtfully and said, "The wound on your face was stabbed by don't underestimate your enemy? Punk, you're courting death." Li Nanshuan roared angrily. His energy leaked out and sent the surrounding sand and stones flying. With him as the center, not a single stone could be seen in a radius of several meters. "Looks like I guessed correctly." Fang Yen said with a smile, "Let me guess again. Back then, when you fought with Mo Qingdi, you were pierced in the cheek by Mo Qingdi's spear. As for whether you entered from the left and exited from the right, I don't know. But it changed your appearance, even your voice was affected. No wonder you wear a black robe and a thick hat all day. It's because you're too ugly and you're afraid of scaring people, right? Also, the way you talk, it sounds like you have sand in your mouth and you're rubbing it. Has anyone ever told you that your voice sounds awful? Fang Yen, I will kill you today." Li Nanshuan's body flashed with white light. This was the special way of using stellar qi, wind and lightning guide. Fang Yen sneered and looked at Li Nanshuan fearlessly. "Since you're here, do you still want to leave?" "Ha ha ha, just you?" Li Nanshuan seemed to have heard a very funny joke. "How about adding me as well?" A hearty voice rang out. Chapter 845. "Plus me, how about that?" The man's voice was thick and heavy, but because of the irrepressible joy and anticipation in his emotions, the way he spoke gave people a hearty and heroic feeling. Under everyone's gaze, a white figure was striding up from halfway up the mountain. The mountain was high and dangerous, but he walked like it was flat ground. The thorny bushes and the boulders blocking the way did not pose any threat to him at all. All it did was make his steps more graceful and light. The way he walked was like a beautiful dance, making people want to dance to his beat. When you first saw him, he seemed very far away, just a tiny white dot in the middle of the mountain. When you blink and look again, he is a little closer to you. When you looked again, he was a little closer. The white dot became a ball of light, and the ball of light became a phantom. When he stood in front of you, the image of an extraordinary and stalwart man gradually became clear. Then, he became the person in everyone's memory, the person who made people's eyes redden and hearts beat faster. Do not underestimate the enemy. One of the 3 dragons of Huaxia, do not underestimate the enemy. Do not underestimate the enemy who conquered the whole of Huaxia with one spear. Do not underestimate the enemy who challenged the whole of the world without losing a single battle. He was the most talented warrior, and also the most dazzling star. He once won the whole era, but was also abandoned by that era. After that unparalleled battle with the dragon god, his tendons in his hand were broken by the dragon god, and he became a cripple. The dragon do not underestimate the enemy fell, and hid in Swallow Dock, becoming an old drunkard who was talked about and ridiculed by people. For years ago, in order to repair his pulse, he listened to the words of the medical fanatic Qin Wujie, and went to the extreme cold to search for the legendary ice dragon. Everyone thought that this was his alternative way of hiding from the world. Once he left, there was no news of him, and it was feared that they would never meet again. What no one expected was that he came back. At such a crucial moment. Do not underestimate the enemy. The dragon god was slightly surprised. Even with his cultivation and temperament, he could not help but be surprised when he saw the opponent in front of him, whom he had knocked down from the altar. He knew his swordsmanship, and he also knew how much damage he had done to his arm. If he wanted to cut off a person's tendons, even if that person hid both hands in a safe, it would be useless. He was confident in his swordsmanship. Therefore, when his gaze once again fell upon the long spear in the hands of the azure dragon Mo-Chingdi, he had a very surreal feeling. His tendons really healed? His body really recovered? His cultivation had returned to its peak state again? Black Dragon Li Nanshuan cackled loudly. His hoarse voice contained an unconcealable hatred. Don't underestimate me, you actually didn't die? You still dare to come back? Gong Sun Chi's eyes widened as he stared at the intruder. Don't underestimate the enemy. Back then, he was able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Master and be known as a brilliant figure? Oh my god, he's so young, and he looks quite handsome. He has a unique manly charm, he looks much better than my master. I really envy Fang Yan, because he had met the 3 divine dragons of Huaxia. He had met all 3 legendary figures. It was said that collecting 3 dragons could be exchanged for a Dragon Ball. Because he had seen the 3 divine dragons of China, the 3 legendary figures, all at once, it was said that collecting 3 dragons could be exchanged for a Dragon Ball. Mo-Chingdi did not care about the dragon god, nor did he care about the black dragon Li Nanshuan. He was wearing a white robe made of animal fur, stained with mud and blood, and weathered by the sun and the wind. He was wearing a white robe made of animal fur. The white robe was stained with mud and blood. It was weathered by the wind and the sun, so it looked a little old and rotten. Of course, this was different from being wrapped in powder, because his white was so natural, crystal clear, and shone with a healthy luster. Of course, this was different from wrapping powder because his whiteness was so natural, sparkling and translucent, shining with a healthy luster. Of course, this was different from being wrapped in powder, because his white was so natural, crystal clear, and shone with a healthy luster. Red blood flowed out of the blue vessels. The blue veins were clearly visible, and so was the blood. The flowing blood gave off a sense of vitality. The current Mo-Chingdi was very different from the Mo-Chingdi who had fallen. The current Mo-Chingdi looked very graceful and very strange. At least, Fang Yan thought it was a bit inappropriate. He was originally a rustic Chinese character. How did he suddenly turn into a handsome man with snow-white skin? There was already one person in the family who walked the path of an idol. What was going on with another? All the men in the family are pretty boys. Outsiders will bully us if they see us. Mo-Chingdi's eyes were fixed on Fang Yan, and Fang Yan's eyes were also fixed on Mo-Chingdi. They looked at each other and smiled. There was a familiar tacit understanding and an indescribable kinship between them. As they smiled, Fang Yan's eyes became moist. He rubbed his eyes and said angrily, I told you at the time, this place is not suitable for a duel. The sandstorm is so strong that I can't even open my eyes. You're crying. Mo-Chingdi said with a smile. Old drunkard, what are you talking about? Fang Yan was so angry that he tried to deny it. You're the one who's crying. I told you, it's the sand in my eyes, you're crying. Azure Dragon Mo-Chingdi carefully observed Fang Yan's expression and said with certainty. Hey, are you done yet? I'm a water overflow realm master now, do you believe that I won't beat you up? Good. Mo-Chingdi grinned and said, you're doing very well. I've been doing very well. How about you? Fang Yan looked at Mo-Chingdi and said. You're looking very good too. I'm also doing very well. Mo-Chingdi nodded and looked into Fang Yan's eyes, his face full of love and joy. All along, his relationship with Fang Yan had been very vague. They were like brothers, like close friends, like drinking buddies, but also like a master and a disciple. Fang Yan was the closest person to him in this world. Fang Yan also grew up under his gaze, and grew up under his guidance. Because of Fang Yixing's abandonment of martial arts for literature, although Fang Yan's master was Fang Hui, the person who truly taught Fang Yan the most and influenced Fang Yan the most was Mo-Chingdi. If not for the nurturing and guidance of such a heavenly Tao realm master, perhaps Fang Yan wouldn't have been able to understand the heart of Taiji at that age. Without the help of the heart of Taiji, how could Fang Yan have stepped into the water overflow realm so quickly? Although the land of extreme frost is a little cold, under the care of my friends, life is still considered comfortable. When I'm hungry, there's nutritious food and fresh fruits. When I'm thirsty, there's ice spring and lava. When I'm cold, there's a mattress and coat made of animal fur. Some things can't even be bought in Yanjing City, they're very rare. I've brought some back for you as a present. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, looks like you're quite popular, to be able to receive the care of a friend in a place like the land of extreme frost. Mo Qingdi nodded and said, yes. It was also with the help of that friend that I found the ice dragon bloodline. Fang Yan's eyes instantly lit up. He excitedly said, I knew you could do it. You really did it. Does that mean your meridians have been reconnected? They've been reconnected, Mo Qingdi said. You've recovered? I've recovered, Mo Qingdi answered again. That's great. Fang Yan laughed heartily, laughing so hard that he rocked back and forth, tears spilling from his eyes. That's great, our Fang clan has 3 heavenly Dao. Does this count as the #1 clan in Inner Jianghu? Let's see who dares to bully us in the future. Those who bully us, will definitely bully them back. Mo Qingdi also laughed, but his smile was a little sorrowful. There were too many grievances in his heart, and too much suffering. There was also the regret that could never be made up for. After his death, the Fang clan had gone through too many trials and tribulations. Fortunately, at that time, Fang Yan did not let them down. Through his own hard work, he made sure that no one dared to say or do anything too outrageous to the Fang clan. However, Fang Yixing's tragic death was a huge boulder that weighed on the hearts of every member of the Fang clan. If only he hadn't fallen into depravity, if only he hadn't become a worthless drunkard. Would that mean that Fang Yixing would not die? Grievances could be poured out, hatred could be purged. But the dead cannot be brought back to life. Fang Yixing was his elder brother, his family. But he couldn't do anything about his departure. Traveling to the Arctic lands was already a journey of death. Coincidentally, he met the ice dragon, and finally returned with his full strength. How much sorrow and unspeakable joy did he experience during this journey? Seeing Fang Yan laughing, seeing Fang Yan crying, how could he not want to be like him, first laughing, then crying? But he couldn't. As long as he was alive, he had to shoulder the burden of the clan. As long as he could stand up, he had to stand in front of Fang Yan, protect him from the wind and rain, and help him kill the demons. He was Fang Yan's guardian angel. As long as he was alive, it would not be Fang Yan's turn to shoulder all the responsibilities of the clan. Their generation had their responsibilities. When he died, it would be Fang Yan's turn to carry the Fang clan's banner. He could understand Fang Yan's feelings. He knew that he was excited, but also relieved. It was too hard for him to walk, too hard for him. He needed someone to share his burden, and he hoped that someone could fight alongside him. In Mo Qingdi's eyes, Fang Yan was still a child. He was his own child. His own child was bullied and wronged outside. This was something that no parent could tolerate. Mo Qingdi looked at Fang Yan and said softly, I will kill whoever dares to kill you. I will kill whoever you want to kill. Chapter 846. When parents go on a long journey, they always bring some gifts for their eagerly awaited children at home. Some parents bring toys, some bring candy, but what Mo Qingdi brought to Fang Yan was endless trust and support. I'll kill whoever dares to kill you. Whoever you want to kill, I'll kill. Fang Yan didn't hesitate at all. As long as he said the word, Mo Qingdi would kill everyone on top of the flying peak without hesitation. Of course, Yi Ro was an exception. If he asked the old drunkard to kill Yi Ro, he would probably be the first to be killed. Killing is not urgent. Fang Yan wiped away his tears, looked at Mo Qingdi and asked, which friend of yours? Did he come back with you? I want to buy him a drink. He came back, Mo Qingdi said softly. There was a warm smile on his face, like a husband thinking of his beautiful wife. In all honesty, this was the first time Fang Yan saw such a smile on the old drunkard's face. He didn't know why, but he felt a little sour in his heart, a little jealous. As soon as he finished speaking, a white shadow darted across the sky and stopped right in front of Fang Yen. The shadow glared at Fang Yen and the rest of the humans in front of him. This little transparent dog sensed danger and hostility. Fang Yen stared at it with widened eyes and asked, "The friend you were talking about, is it it?" "That's it," Mo Qingdi said with absolute certainty. "It's so ugly." Fang Yen was stunned for a long time, then commented. "Pfft." The little transparent dog spat out a bone from its mouth. "Pfft." The little transparent dog spat out another bone. "Pfft." The little transparent dog spat out a third bone. Fang Yen looked at Mo Qingdi and asked, "What does it mean?" "It's talking to you." Mo Qingdi acted as the communication bridge between Fang Yen and the little transparent dog. "You're the ugly one." Pfft. Yi Ro couldn't hold it in any longer. Her lips curled up into a sweet and pure smile. Gong Sun Chi's mouth twitched, but when he thought that his master and that martial uncle who appeared out of nowhere were still staring at them, he quickly held back his laughter and put on a coffin face as if this joke was not funny at all. Fang Yen stared wide-eyed at Mo Qingdi and said, "Are you kidding me? How does it know what I'm saying?" Puff, the transparent puppy spat at Fang Yen again, but this time, there were no bones. Puff. It spat out 2 more mouthfuls. This time, Fang Yen really believed it. He bared his teeth at the transparent dog and said, "Stop it. From today on, you and I are brothers. Don't worry, I won't despise you for being a dog." Puff, the ice dragon sprayed water at Fang Yen again. "It doesn't agree," Mo Qingdi explained helplessly. "Are you kidding me?" Fang Yen was furious. He never thought that one day he would be despised by a dog. "I'm warning you, I don't know what kind of dog you are. Now that you're in Yanjing, do as the Romans do. Do what I tell you to do. Otherwise, your life will be..." Puff, a brown fruit core flew towards Fang Yen's face. Fang Yen tilted his head, and the core flew into a large stone in the distance. The fruit box sank into the inner wall of the stone, and only a small, dark hole could be seen outside. This scene made everyone's heart jump. This strange-looking puppy had only casually spat out a fruit pit, yet it had such great power. If it wanted to hurt people, most people wouldn't be its opponent, right? Gong Sun Chi looked at the transparent dog, then thought about his own martial arts, and wondered what his chances of winning were if he were to fight with it. It really hurt his pride. The dragon god looked at the transparent dog in horror, and asked aloud, "This is the legendary ice dragon?" "Yes," Mo Qingdi nodded, "it is the ice dragon." The black dragon's eyes flashed, and it looked at the ice dragon like a vulture, full of greed and cruelty. Fang Yen looked at the ice dragon again, and asked, "If it is the ice dragon, then, your body." Fang Yan's question hit the nail on the head of Mo Qingdi's hesitation. At that time, he was indeed faced with a dilemma. The ice dragon was his savior. If he killed the ice dragon to restore his meridians, then he would be a heartless person. But if he didn't kill the ice dragon, then his meridians would never recover, and he would never be able to leave that land of extreme cold. Later, he found the hidden cave behind the ice dragon's mountain, and inside, he found the remains of the ice dragon clan that was guarded by the ice dragon. He didn't know what expression he had when he saw the ice sculptures, but he clearly saw the ice dragon's angry roar. The 2 men confronted each other in the ice cave for a long time, and then the ice dragon launched an attack. They had engaged in a fierce battle, and even the entire cave where the remains were buried had cracked because of it. The avalanche buried the entire mountain where they had lived for a long time. In the end, they desperately escaped, and Mo Qingdi completely gave up. Because he knew that he had hurt the ice dragon, and he also knew that he couldn't go back into the ice mountain to steal the remains, he was afraid that the deep cave where they fought had sunk deep into the ground, and it would be impossible for them to see the world again. But the thought that he would live forever in the land of extreme cold, and that his family in Yanjing would be in all kinds of danger, made it difficult for him to sleep. Unexpectedly, the transparent dog seemed to have seen through Mo Qingdi's thoughts. One sleepless night, it used its mouth to pull on the corner of Mo Qingdi's clothes, and pulled him into another cave. In that small cave, there were only 3 bodies of the ice dragon, but each one was several times larger than the one he saw in the big cave. Mo Qingdi looked at the transparent dog's eyes, and understood what he meant. The transparent dog whined a few times, and then walked out alone. Mo Qingdi was moved to tears, and used a knife to cut open the body of an ice dragon. The medical fanatic Qin Wujie did not lie to him. The ice dragon's meridians did have the effect of repairing the meridians, because after it entered his body, it melted together with the boiling ice dragon's blood, and then began to repair and open up some of the key areas that were previously injured or blocked. Mo Qingdi slept in the ice cave for 3 days, and then intermittently used the ice dragon's blood according to the methods secretly taught by the medical fanatic Qin Wujie. Every time it was used, it was like a nirvana rebirth, and every nirvana was like being burned in a fire. Until he could feel the flow of air, until he once again experienced the power he once had, he decided to go home. He decided to bring the transparent dog home. In this land of extreme cold, he only had this dog as his family. It was the same as him. If he left, then it would be all alone in this world, looking just like a dog. Mo Qingdi and it had a simple discussion, not sure if it understood, but the 2 of them packed their bags and set off on their way home. Fortunately, it was not too late, and they made it in time. My body has recovered. Mo Qingdi naturally did not want to explain too much to Fang Yan here, and said, it's mainly because of it. As if it understood that Mo Qingdi was praising it, the transparent dog glanced proudly at Fang Yan, and then wagged its little tail as it paced back and forth in front of Fang Yan. Mo Qingdi looked at it lovingly, and said to Fang Yan, it looks exactly like you. Fang Yan felt like he had received multiple blows and insults. Yuan Rou stood beside Fang Yan, and said to Mo Qingdi, welcome back. Mo Qingdi looked at Yuan Rou with a smile, and said, from now on, we are a family. Yuan Rou nodded, and said, in the past as well. Mo Qingdi laughed loudly, and said, in the past as well. Unfortunately, I did not see it. Mo Qingdi, are you done with your nonsense? Black Dragon Li Nanshuan was getting impatient, and his voice was like an unsheathed sword, full of coldness and bloodlust. An old friend is here, are you not going to greet us? Mo Qingdi finally looked up at the Black Dragon, and asked, you hate me? Ga, the Black Dragon's voice was very ear-piercing. He laughed for a long time before stopping, and pointing at the 2 black holes on his face, he said, Mo Qingdi, you can't have forgotten whose work this is, right? I stabbed you. Mo Qingdi had no intention of denying it. He seriously looked at the ugly face of the Black Dragon Li Nanshuan, and said, in the past, we were both candidates for the guardian of the diagram of Tai Chi. In order to obtain the diagram of Tai Chi, you repeatedly attacked me. When I was entering the Monkey Mountain, you tried to kill me on the way, so I stabbed you. Originally, I wanted to stab your head, but I did not expect your reaction to be so fast. At that critical moment, you managed to avoid the temple, and only let me stab your cheek. I always thought you were too ashamed to admit this, but I did not expect you to keep it in your heart and nag at everyone you see. You have no shame because your face is ruined? Mo Qingdi, the Black Dragon, flew into a rage. He struck out with his palm, and a white ball of light flew towards where Mo Qingdi was standing. It was the tempest of wind and lightning that he was an expert in, and it was only a probing attack. The transparent dog lightly leaped, and swallowed the ball of light into its stomach. Gulp! When the transparent dog swallowed the ball of light, there was a loud swallowing sound coming from its throat. Mo Qingdi helplessly looked at the transparent dog, and said with infinite affection, I have told you many times, not everything can be eaten. Chapter 847. Pft, pft, pft. After the transparent dog ate the stellar energy wind and lightning bringer, it spat out a few mouthfuls of saliva. Every mouthful of saliva emitted a fire-colored gas that rose into the air. After spitting, it cuddled Mo Qingdi's thigh like a playful child. Its tongue was red from the heat, and white liquid dripped out from it from time to time. It looked pathetic and adorable at the same time. Everyone was astonished by this scene. As one of the three dragons, Li Nanshuan's strength was unfathomable. Although his attack just now was a probing attack against Imo Qingdi, if Imo Qingdi did not counterattack or neutralize it, the energy contained within the ball of light would have torn him to shreds. Such a powerful primordial qi bullet was swallowed by a dog? The so-called adverse reaction was no more than a few mouthfuls of smoky saliva? Then what realm was this dog's strength? The heavenly Tao realm? Or the divine transformation realm that no one had ever reached above the heavenly Tao realm? Although the ice dragon looked like a dog, it did indeed have the genes of the unattainable divine dragon bloodline in its body. Fang Yen knew that even he could not swallow the black dragon's stellar energy wind and lightning bringer into his stomach. After all, he was not a dog. He had a more ingenious way to deal with it. Fang Yen had an absolute advantage in terms of intelligence over the transparent dog that only knew how to act coquettishly. Mo Qingdi rubbed the transparent dog's head, expressing his sincere consolation. The transparent dog glanced at Fang Yen smugly, meaning, "Look at how likable I am, but you can't." Dark Dragon Li Nanshuan stared at the little transparent dog for a while with a scorching gaze. Then, he laughed out loud and said, "Don't underestimate your enemy. I didn't expect you to bring back such a powerful helper from your trip to the land of extreme coldness. Do you want this dog to help you fight in the decisive battle?" Li Nanshuan had no choice but to consider such a problem. If he wanted to kill Mo Qingdi, then he would have to face the combined attack of the man and dog. At that time, he would not be able to deal with them. Why not? Mo Qingdi's voice was calm as he spoke. "If you're willing, you can also find a few dogs to help you in the battle. A pack of dogs is fine too." Puff, the little transparent dog blew bubbles at Li Nanshuan. It still bore a grudge against Li Nanshuan for throwing those disgusting things at it. Black Dragon Li Nanshuan was exasperated. He sneered and said, "I haven't seen you for a few years. I wonder if your 'don't underestimate the enemy' skill has improved. Your skin has become much thicker." He was no fool. Even if he found 100 dogs, they still wouldn't be able to fight against the ice dragon by Mo Qingdi's side. If two heavenly Tao realm experts were to fight, wouldn't he become a laughing stock if a bunch of hounds died beneath their feet? Mo Qingdi glanced at the divine dragon and said, "According to your standards, isn't it shameless to use a sword against an opponent who is barehanded?" Black Dragon Li Nanshuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He looked at the divine dragon and said, "Junior brother, it seems that they are clearly going to bully us. If that's the case, you and I will join forces and fight them to the death. Back then, we were able to defeat them with our swords. Now, we can do the same." The divine dragon's face was calm, unaffected by the rapidly changing environment. He looked at Fang Yen with a gentle gaze and asked, "Do you want to continue with the battle?" Fang Yen nodded and said with a smile, "Of course. Then let us continue. Everything else has nothing to do with you and me." The divine dragon gripped his sword and said in a low voice, "That's exactly what I wanted." Fang Yen said. The azure dragon Mo Qingdi looked at the black dragon and said, "Back then, I only managed to pierce your face. I've always felt regretful. This time, I won't make the same mistake." "Kakik," Black Dragon Li Nanshuan laughed maniacally. "Don't underestimate the enemy. Do you think you're still the same? Do you think I'm still the same? You've been a good-for-nothing all these years. Even if your meridians were reconnected, do you think you can return to your peak state? Besides, so what if you've returned to your peak state? Don't you know that everyone in this world can improve? All these years, there hasn't been a day that I haven't thought about it. There hasn't been a day that I haven't worked hard. Even if you're still at your peak state, I'll still defeat you with my sword, not to mention that you can't return to your peak state after your meridians were reconnected. You know this better than anyone else. You're just bluffing, you talk too much." Mo Qingdi grumbled and charged toward the rock that Black Dragon Li Nanshuan was standing on with his spear. His huge body was like a moving hill. Every step he took crushed the hard rock into powder. Halfway through his run, he leaped high into the air. Like a giant god in white descending from the sky, he wielded a sharp weapon that could cut through the sky and stab toward the black figure on the rock. In the eyes of the black dragon, the spear grew larger and larger. It was as if what Immerse was holding was not a spear, but a tree so wide that it would take two people to wrap their arms around it. It was a giant pillar that supported the southern heavenly gate. But the sharpness of the spear grew smaller and smaller, until it was as thin as a needle. He had no doubt that the spear could easily pierce through his cheek or head, just like the spear that had pierced out 20 years ago. He hadn't changed. He was still Immerse. The moment the spear struck, it shook the heavens and the earth. Boom! Before the tip of the spear reached the rock beneath Black Dragon Linanxuan's feet, unable to withstand the boundless energy, shattered into pieces. There was nothing beneath Black Dragon Linanxuan's feet to support him. His body was still floating in the air. His body didn't move at all, as if the rock beneath his feet hadn't shattered and was still beneath his feet. He couldn't move. Once he moved, he would reveal an opening. Once an opening appeared, he would be either wounded or dead. The spear was close, right at the tip of his nose. His head was about to be pierced through by the spear. No, if he were to be attacked by such a powerful force, his entire head would probably explode. The current Immerse had changed a little from the Immerse of the past. The Immerse of the past emphasized elegance and calmness, and would never waste an ounce of energy. His control over his body had reached the realm of divinity. The current Immerse was even more tyrannical and biting cold. His method of attack was reckless and relentless. The Immerse of the past could accurately pierce through a person's head with the same spear. It was possible that the person would still be unconscious when they were pierced. But now, Immerse would brutally smash a person's head, like a watermelon that had been smashed with great force, or a bomb that had been detonated by someone. The aesthetics of extreme violence. The black dragon finally moved. No, it should be said that he had moved a long time ago. How could he tolerate someone pointing a spear at the tip of his nose? Even if he still had a way to fight back, he couldn't tolerate such an insult. What stopped where he was only an afterimage. With a speed faster than the naked eye could follow, he leapt in front of Immerse. A flash of silver light. The silver light was like a silver sickle, silently slicing towards Immerse's neck. The spear was tyrannical, suitable for long-range attacks. However, when the enemy invaded the main gate of your family, trying to rescue them would be a burden. Just like the current Azure Dragon Immerse. His spear thrust was earth-shattering. The long spear was wrapped in an invincible and piercingly cold chi, dragging his body forward. But at this crucial moment, the black dragon Linanxuan had sneaked into his inner courtyard and was about to cut off his head. Just like a heavily guarded courtyard, if a thief had already infiltrated the inner courtyard, what was the point of setting up more machine guns and cannons outside? Sure enough, the current Immerse was in danger of not being able to save himself. Immerse, the black dragon Linanxuan, was holding an illusory long sword in his hand. It looked like a flickering silver light tube. Whoosh, the long sword slashed towards Immerse's neck. It missed. There was no lingering and refreshing sensation of a sharp weapon cutting through flesh. Whoosh, Immerse disappeared into thin air, then suddenly reappeared. His large hand reached out to grab the blade of the long sword, but the spear in his hand had disappeared. While Immerse and the black dragon Linanxuan were engaged in a life-and-death battle, Fang Yan and the divine dragon Linanxuan were not idle either. After the previous exchange, they could be considered a pair of opponents who knew each other well. But this understanding was one-sided and narrow. Fang Yan did not know how many magical treasures and ultimate moves the divine dragon Linanxuan had cultivated for decades. Similarly, the divine dragon Linanxuan did not know what kind of power the young genius who had just entered the water overflow realm would explode with. In any case, there was an unbreakable truth in the realm of martial arts: the fist fears the youth. While the others were fighting each other, Yi Rou and Gong Sun Chi seemed a little out of place with the atmosphere. Yi Ro glanced at Gong Sun Chi and had the urge to give it a try. She said expressionlessly, "Let's try too." While the others were fighting to the death, only the heavenly Tao realm Yi Ro was watching idly from the side. She was tempted by the sight of the skill and wanted to give it a try. Unfortunately, the experts had all been snatched away by Fang Yen and Mo Qing Di. She only had Gong Sun Chi, a nobody, to choose from. Even if he was a nobody, he was still an opponent. She had nothing to do anyway, and now was not the time to be picky. "I will definitely not fight you." Gong Sun Chi secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva and rejected coldly. "Fang Yen and I are brothers. You and Fang Yen are about to get married, which makes you my future sister-in-law. How can I attack my sister-in-law?" Chapter 848. A good man didn't fight with a woman. Smart men were the same. Gong Sun Chi wasn't stupid. How could he fight to the death with Yi Ro, who was at the heavenly Tao realm? No, if he did that, he would only be beaten to death by Yi Ro. Now, he was especially glad that he had reconciled with Fang Yen, and that they had been friends for a period of time. Although their friendship started with his disgraceful image, he knew that they would definitely be in the same boat through thick and thin together for a long time. For example, now, he would never attack his brother's girlfriend. Even if she stood at the side and insulted him time and time again. Gong Sun Chi could tell that Yi Ro looked at him with displeasure. She wanted to beat him up. "You really don't want to fight?" Yi Ro was a little disappointed. They were in a heated battle, but her challenge was given the cold shoulder. However, Gong Sun Chi didn't dare to accept the challenge. She couldn't fight alone. She couldn't just let him stand there and beat him to death, right? That wouldn't be a battle, but a torture. "I really don't want to fight." Gong Sun Chi said with a serious face. "Fang Yen is now challenging one of the 3 dragons of Hua Xia, the divine dragon. You can imagine how much psychological pressure he is under. At this most dangerous and critical moment, if I were to fight with his wife, wouldn't it affect his state of mind? I will never do such a thing. Otherwise, how can I be his brother in the future?" Yi Ro looked at Gong Sun Chi in surprise and asked, "You are possessed by Fang Yen? If you want to fight, that's fine. I will stand here and let you fight. You can kill me or cut me up. I won't fight back no matter what." Gong Sun Chi said heroically. Yi Ro nodded and said, "You are indeed possessed by Fang Yen." Kacha, Fang Yan's body crashed into a 100-year-old pine tree. The branches of the tree couldn't bear his weight and cracked from the middle, producing a cracking sound. Because the big pine tree grew on the edge of the cliff, after the impact, the roots of the big pine tree began to uproot from the ground, and the whole tree head also tilted towards the bottom of the cliff. Fang Yen leaned against the tree trunk, which had countless cracks on it, and panted heavily. Rustling sounds came from the tree. It was the sound of the broken stones falling down the cliff. If Fang Yen had been careless just now, he would have been swept off the cliff by the demon-slaying sword in the dragon god's hands. At that time, only death would await them. The hot blood in his body was boiling, and the qi that flowed back violently ran amok in his meridians. Finally, it was dispelled and suppressed by Fang Yan's lousy heart-cleansing mantra. He waited until his breathing returned to normal before he pushed off from the pine tree that was about to fall off the cliff. SSSSS, the uprooting of the tree roots became more intense. Then, with a loud rumble, the entire pine tree was uprooted and fell off the cliff. Fang Yan's body landed on a square rock, and once again, he faced the dragon god who was standing with the sword. "What was the name of that sentence?" Fang Yan asked. "Samsara," answered the dragon god with much difficulty. "Samsara. Good name." Fang Yan praised, "Go and come back, go and come back. The blade has gone, and the sword will has returned. If it wasn't for the heart of Tai Chi's timely warning and quick response, I'm afraid I would have been cut in half by your sword will." The heart of Tai Chi is an ultimate Taoist technique, and there are too many things that make people envious. With a sword in hand, the world is mine. What else in this world can make Mr. Dragon God envious? Yes. The Dragon God answered without hesitation. For example, the heart of Tai Chi and a young body. This body of mine is too old, so old that it can no longer bear the responsibilities it should have. Fang Yen smiled and said, everyone will grow old. Yes. That being said, the Dragon God's face was full of regret as he said, but, I'm old, and you're still young. The Dragon God was also injured. Other than the injury that Fang Yen used to pierce through his back with half of the Tai Chi light, there were a few more wounds on his chest. His gray robe was messy, and the hem of his clothes was torn. His hair was originally tied up by a black band, but now the band was gone. His hair danced in the night wind, and he looked like an old ghost. Anyone who looked like an immortal would become like this after experiencing a fierce battle. I can't do anything about that. Fang Yen shrugged and said with a smile. He looked at the Dragon God and said, previously, I wanted to avenge the old drunkard, so I wanted to challenge you and defeat you. Now that the old drunkard is back, he can do what I want to do. So now, I just want to challenge you, and defeat you, because of what? Because you're a master worthy of respect. Fang Yen said in a low voice. Thank you. The Dragon God looked at Fang Yen sincerely and said, you're the most talented young man I've seen in so many years, and the one I look forward to the most, even though you've achieved such results at your age, and reached the water overflow state that countless people dream of, I still want to tell you that this is just the beginning. I think you can go very, very far, to a place that we've never seen before, and that no one has ever walked before. If I'm not here by then, please tell me about it in front of my grave. I don't drink, so don't bring any wine. Bring a pot of tea, preferably bilyuakun. I'll drink tea while listening to you talk about the mysterious scenery of that world. It's also a pleasure for the eyes. After a pause, the Dragon God looked at Fang Yen and said, I know you're ready. So, from now on, use all your power to defeat me. I'll do my best. Fang Yen said in a low voice. Fang Yan's feet left the boulder, and his body slowly drifted upward. His body floated in midair, and then he stretched out his arms, assuming the posture of lifting clothes while walking in Tai Chi. Fang Yen closed his eyes, and the heart of Tai Chi in his body began to spin frantically. This time, the transparent crystal core began to rotate, and it slowly rotated. It was like the movement of the sun, and it would only move after a few seconds. However, only those who were familiar with the core would know that this speed of movement was much faster than when it was spinning frantically and not moving at all. When it was stationary, it was so fast that it was hard to see with the naked eye, and when it started to spin again, it was so fast that it could be seen with the naked eye. From being seen with the naked eye to being seen with the naked eye, it was a long and tortuous process in between. There were countless people who could not reach this step in their entire lives. In the words of the Dragon God, every breakthrough was like an unknown scenery to them. He had seen some of the scenery, and Fang Yen would see it too. However, there were some scenery that only Fang Yen would be able to see. Energy began to spin around Fang Yan's body. No, it should be said that he stirred up the airflow in the air. The surrounding air gathered around him, and then revolved around the rhythm of his Tai Chi core. The air was everywhere, the fallen leaves on the ground, the rocks, the uprooted weeds and small trees, and even the moist soil. They gathered towards Fang Yen in the air, and then revolved around him, wrapping him up layer by layer. Fang Yen became a big Easter egg, and until the last moment of the movie, no one would be able to see his real body. The Easter egg spun faster and faster, and also became bigger and bigger. At a glance, it looked like an alien flying saucer that had just landed from the sky, and had not yet had the time to descend. The flying saucer paused in the air for a moment, and then charged towards the Dragon God not far away. Heaven and earth lived together. How magnificent! The Dragon God cheered, and then charged towards the flying saucer with his sword. The demon-slaying sword in his hand let out a buzzing sound, and then flames appeared. It thrust its sword straight at the front of the flying saucer. One sword became two swords, 2 swords became 4 swords, 4 swords became 8 swords, then dozens of swords, hundreds of swords, thousands of swords, densely packed sword shadows, and the entire flying saucer seemed to be enveloped by the demon slayer sword. The countless demon-slaying swords were like countless harvesters, harvesting the flying saucer layer by layer. Layer by layer, the outer skin of the Easter egg was torn off by the demon-slaying sword, like an onion being peeled layer by layer. The tip of the sword in the middle stabbed straight into the heart of the onion, and it was determined to stab Fang Yen, who was hidden in the center of the Easter egg, to death. SSSSS, the outer skin was cut off by the sword chi, and then it once again surrounded Fang Yen, who was like a magnet. Whoosh, they surged in from all directions, wrapping around the dragon god, who was trying to stab into the heart of the Easter egg. Crack, when the eggs were closed, the lives of Fang Yen and the dragon god, who were sandwiched in between, looked like a double yolk egg. Everyone could feel the violent energy inside the egg, as well as the biting cold killing intent that could soar into the sky at any time. Bang, the Easter egg suddenly exploded. The air, the leaves, the weeds, the sand, the stones, the soil, they were like the raw materials for a bomb flying in all directions. Yi Ro, who was watching the battle from afar, was blown back a few steps by the shockwave of the explosion. Gong Sun Chi took a dozen steps back before he could stabilize himself. If he hadn't used the 1000 caddy fall several times in a row, his body would have been blown off the cliff. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the force of the explosion was. What would be the fate of the 2 people in the core of the explosion? Whoosh, a dark figure flew out of the egg. He held a long sword in his hand and flew towards a protruding boulder. However, Fang Yen was nowhere to be found. The dragon god struggled to stand on the big rock, silently pondering. After a long time, he sighed softly and hissed, "I've lost." Chapter 849. Each generation had its own geniuses, each leading for centuries. This was fate. The divine dragon's bitter life was once a legend of an era, a star in the sky, an unreachable existence. However, his era was coming to an end, just like how he once ended the azure dragon, Mo Qingdi, who entered the heavenly axiom before him. However, he did not expect that today would be the day of his end, and that the person who ended him would be Mo Qingdi's junior brother, Fang Yen, whom he had once ended. He ended Mo Qingdi for his junior brother, and in the end, he was ended by Mo Qingdi's junior brother. Was this not fate? "I've lost," the divine dragon said in a low voice. How solemn was this sentence. He admitted his failure and the end of his era with his own mouth. When he said this, the old god was dead, and a new god was to be established. Hua Xia, another martial arts star, rose. The moment she appeared, she shocked the world with her dazzling display. Fang Yen of the water overflow state defeated the heavenly axiom state bitter life, and a new dragon was born. "Master!" Gong Sun Chi screamed. He had always disapproved of this battle, because he did not want Fang Yen to be injured or Fang Yen to die. Yes, in his heart, the master's bitter life was the most powerful existence. Fang Yen, who had just entered the water overflow state, was no match for him. If this battle was carried out, the only outcome would be Fang Yan's defeat. What he did not expect was that the person who lost was his own master. How could the person who was like a god in his heart lose? How could he lose to Fang Yen? All sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. It was as if something was stuck in his heart, so oppressive that he could not breathe, causing him to be unable to say a word. The divine dragon nodded at Gong Sun Chi and said with a smile, "Victory and defeat are common in war. Why do you have to act like a little girl? I'm old, and I've lost. That's why young people like you should work harder." Gong Sun Chi straightened his back and said in a clear voice, "This disciple will follow master's instructions." Yi Ro didn't expect the battle to end so quickly. She also didn't expect the divine dragon to say that he had lost after jumping out of the Easter egg. Even with her cultivation and eyesight, she couldn't see through everything. However, she liked the honesty of the dragon god's hard work. She still did not like the dragon god, but her impression of him had changed. She cupped her fists at the dragon god. It was a way for martial artists to show their respect. Fang Yan appeared. He appeared behind the position where the dragon god was struggling to stand. "Thank you, Mr. Dragon God." Fang Yan was equally apologetic and said gratefully. "I didn't. This kind of thing cannot be allowed to happen." The divine dragon tried his best to correct Fang Yan's mistake with a serious expression. He asked, "What's the name of that move?" "Flooding Jinshan," Fang Yan said aloud. "Flooding Jinshan, what a good name." The dragon god smiled and asked, "Did you name it yourself?" "I named it myself." "I know your family has a long history of learning. It's a good thing to read more. Only by reading more can you gain knowledge, and only with knowledge can you get a good name. Otherwise, our martial arts heritage would be left with names like Black Bull leaning on Black Tiger digging heart and Lazy Donkey rolling around. How would we have the face to meet our martial arts predecessors?" The dragon god said emotionally. "It's not an injustice that I lost to your flooding Jinshan this time. I originally thought that your real body was inside the Jinshan, but you used a camouflage on me. You still stayed outside the Jinshan, and only I was wrapped up by Shui Zhang. My sword also missed. When I missed my strike, you already had the chance to win in one strike. Unfortunately, you didn't do anything. So, I lost." The dragon god looked at Fang Yan sincerely and said, "I lost wholeheartedly. Your character and bearing are far better than ordinary people." Fang Yan bowed slightly and said, "You flatter me, Mr. Dragon God." The dragon god looked at Fang Yan with a gratified expression and said, "With a younger generation, martial arts is not lonely. Gong Sun Chi, you have such an excellent companion. This is the best thing in your life. You will understand in the future. You should learn from Fang Yan and break through as soon as possible." "Yes, master." Gong Sun Chi replied respectfully. The dragon god did not even look at Black Dragon Li Nanshuan and Green Dragon Mo Qingdi. His eyes were calm and gentle as he looked at Fang Yan. He sighed softly and said, "It's said that fists and feet have no eyes, but after all, it's still the nature of one's heart. In the past, I didn't think I did anything wrong. But today, your behavior has made me feel ashamed." A green light flashed, and the divine dragon's struggling body was scanned from top to bottom by that green light. His body trembled violently, and then he fell to the ground on his butt. "This body's cultivation base has been crippled, and from now on, I am a commoner." The dragon god looked at Fang Yan and said, "I will pay back the debt I owe." "Mr. Dragon God." Fang Yan panicked and rushed over to help the dragon god up from the ground. "You don't have to do this." The dragon god shook his head, and his rosy cheeks instantly aged. Without that energy and spiritual support, he was just an old man over 70 years of age. "If I don't do this, I won't be able to calm my mind." The dragon god grinned. "You know what kind of danger a heavenly Tao expert will encounter when they find it hard to calm their mind. I've been glorious, I've existed, and there are legends about me everywhere. Life is full of different forms, and every kind of life should be enjoyed at least once. I'm old now. Wouldn't it be more interesting to go back to plow the fields and grow vegetables?" Fang Yan was stunned for a while, and was deeply impressed by the dragon god's breadth of mind. He said, "Then I'll be a vegetable thief. Mr. Dragon God, you must take good care of the courtyard." Welcome. Welcome." The dragon god patted Fang Yan's shoulder with great effort and laughed out loud. "Master." Gong Sun Chi's eyes were red as he knelt beside the dragon god. His tears were about to fall. He never thought that his master's way of doing things would be so extreme. Besides, Fang Yan's family had 3 heavenly Dao, and the only heavenly Dao expert on his side had crippled his martial arts. What if Fang Yan bullied him in the future? His woman had already begun to bully him. "Gong Sun Chi, help me up," the dragon god said with great effort. With the help of Fang Yan and Gong Sun Chi, the the dragon god was helped up from the ground with great effort. "Let's go." The dragon god waved his hand and said, "Let's go back and plant vegetables." "Yes, Master." The master and disciples' figures walked away, but Fang Yen still did not regain his senses. "He's an admirable old man." Yi Rou stood behind Fang Yen and said aloud. "Yes. In fact, he doesn't have to do this." Fang Yen sighed. Fang Yen suddenly turned around and hugged Yi Rou in his arms. He used all his strength, as if he wanted to rub her body into his own. "We can get married," Fang Yen said excitedly in Yi Rou's ear. "You don't have to be a widow anymore." "I never planned to be a widow," Yi Rou said. "What do you mean?" "If he wants to kill you, I will kill him," Yi Rou said calmly. "This is the final battle." "I don't care if this is the final battle. Then my reputation will be ruined. I can kill all the people on this place." Fang Yen secretly felt lucky for Gong Sun Chi. If Yi Rou killed him first, he probably would not have much power to fight back. A woman's heart was unfathomable. It was really unfathomable. Pfft, the transparent puppy glanced at Fang Yen and Yi Rou, who were hugging each other, and spat a mouthful of saliva at Fang Yen. "I'm hugging my wife, do you have a problem with that?" Fang Yen glared at him unhappily. Pfft, the transparent puppy spat at Fang Yen again, then ran to Yi Rou's pants with its mouth, signaling her to stay away from Fang Yen and not to hug him. "How dare you steal my woman?" Fang Yen was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to fight with the transparent puppy. Mo Qingdi's spear was not fast, but each spear was like a thunderbolt, making it very difficult for people to deal with. At their level, the choice of weapon was not important. Just like how Fang Yen could defeat the dragon god with his demon-slaying sword, it was the same principle. They were playing with their state of mind. When your reaction speed could not keep up with your state of mind, you had no chance of fighting back when faced with a massacre. However, Mo Qingdi still subconsciously felt that it was best not to let Mo Qingdi hold a spear. He knew this was a dangerous way of thinking because he was afraid. The more he feared, the more likely he was to fail. Fear was a demon in the heart. When the demon took control of your heart, it would be difficult for you to display your true strength. Mo Qingdi had been hailed as the best spear in the world 20 years ago. The silver spear in his hand was like a god descending to the mortal world, almost unstoppable. Dark Dragon Li Nanshuan had wanted to intercept and kill him on the way over the Tai Chi diagram, but he had not expected to be stabbed in the face. Dark Dragon Li Nanshuan burned with rage when he remembered the gaping hole in his face. It was a scar, a humiliation. Even though Mo Qingdi's tendons had been broken by his junior, the dragon god, and he had become a cripple, it was still difficult to dispel the ferocity in his heart. Dark Dragon's body sprinted towards Mo Qingdi. With each step he took, an afterimage appeared in the air. By the time he was one step away from Mo Qingdi, the air was already filled with the shadows of dark dragons, as if there were countless black robes fighting with Mo Qingdi. His real body was at the forefront, the long sword in his hand emitting a faint buzzing sound like that of insects. Old drunkard Mo Qingdi's eyes were solemn, then he thrust his spear at an illusory figure on his left. Chapter 850. Some say that seeing is believing, but many times the eyes can deceive. Mo Qingdi's body was clearly in front, yet his spear was aimed at the distant afterimage. In a fight between experts, myriad changes occur in an instant. A single mistake could cause the entire game to be lost. As Mo Qingdi's spear was aimed at the distant afterimage, Li Nanshuan's body was also slashing at Mo Qingdi's head. There was an obsession in his heart that he must behead Mo Qingdi with his sword. This was something he had wanted to do many years ago. Whoosh, the spear was heavy and long, its tip pointed between the eyebrows of the afterimage. Pa! The afterimage emitted the sound of something exploding and disappeared in the air. At the same time, the afterimages created by the countless black dragons in the sky also exploded one after another, and then disappeared in the air, as if they had never existed. That afterimage was the eye of the formation. It was the mechanism that controlled the countless afterimages. However, this did not mean that the afterimages had no offensive capabilities. With Li Nanshuan's strength, every afterimage he created was a real Li Nanshuan. If Mo Qingdi did not pierce the eye of the formation with his spear, if Mo Qingdi only stabbed at the real body and allowed the afterimages to approach, then every Li Nanshuan could have caused him fatal damage. Li Nanshuan's real body and the sword in his hand were bait and also the real body. If you stabbed at the afterimage, his real body would give you a fatal blow. If you stabbed at the real body, then the afterimage formed by his majestic energy would give you unimaginable damage. This was the so-called double kill in Neijiang Lake. This was an open and above-board trap. Even if you knew his intentions, there was no way you could make a better choice. Moreover, many people would be confused by his real body. When they aimed at the real body to counterattack, the afterimages would tear them into countless pieces. Explosions rang around him, and all the afterimages disappeared. Black Dragon Song Nanshuan did not feel worried at all. On the contrary, there was a hint of delight in his heart. Mo Qingdi, you don't know what a stupid mistake you have made. Do you think I am the same as I was in the past? Years ago, Dark Dragon Song Nanshuan used this move. The dragon dives into the deep sea to kill Mo Qingdi. As a result, Mo Qingdi's spear pierced through his cheek. That time, Mo Qingdi had similarly located the eye of the formation. Then, he first used the tip of his spear to pierce through the eye of the formation, breaking through all of the black dragon's illusionary barriers. Then, he spun the spear around and pierced through the black dragon's cheek. This time, he would not make such a mistake. Song Nanshuan's body suddenly disappeared into thin air. This was the result of him raising his speed to the extreme. When he reappeared, the sword in his hand was the first to appear. The silvery sword of light left a burning shadow in the air, and then it slashed towards Mo Qingdi's throat. It was as fast as lightning, but it was still not fast enough. In the eyes of the spectators, it was as if Mo Qingdi's head would be separated from his neck in the next moment. Don't underestimate the enemy, Dai. Song Nan was about to get his revenge. His voice was filled with excitement. Whoosh, Li Nanshuan slashed down with his sword. His long sword sliced through Mo Qingdi's head. Yes, it sliced through. Because when his sword was about to fall, Missouri Qingdi twisted his body at the same time. After Mo Qingdi's spear pierced through the afterimage, his body had already begun to change shape. Then, he spun the spear around once again. This scene was as if the two of them had performed it countless times. Their coordination was so smooth and tacit. It was the same character from back then, the same technique, the same plot development, but there was a different result. Last time, Mo Qingdi pierced through the black dragon Li Nanshuan's cheek, leaving a scar and humiliation that could never be erased. This time, Mo Qingdi pierced through his heart, the spear pierced through the body. From the chest to the back, a stream of blood flowed along the shaft of the spear towards the tip. Until now, not a single drop of blood had dripped onto the ground. Perhaps this was the only thing that Li Nanshuan felt gratified about. He had said that he was not the same person from back then, and that he would not make the same mistake again. He had done it. Mo Qingdi, Li Nanshuan's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief as he looked at Mo Qingdi. He believed that he had improved a lot over the years, but why was Mo Qingdi, who had wasted so many years, still a head above him? This was illogical. It shouldn't be like this, it shouldn't be like this. There is one thing that you don't know. Mo Qingdi understood what he was thinking, and explained aloud. What thing? Li Nanshuan was indeed curious. Mo Qingdi pointed at the little transparent dog in the distance and said, "It runs very fast." So, I ran faster and faster with it, the same technique as before. You have improved a lot, but I only improved one. I run faster than before, much faster, Mo Qingdi said softly. I can't accept this. The black dragon Li Nanshuan's mouth began to overflow with blood. His internal organs were already ruptured, and he shouted through gritted teeth. I can't accept this. That's what I thought back then. I've shouted this sentence countless times. Mo Qingdi said in a sorrowful voice. He remembered the time when he lived in the Fong family's courtyard. At that time, he refused to socialize with anyone, drowning his sorrows in alcohol every day, not daring to think about anything related to himself. He went from the glorious green dragon Mo Qingdi to an old drunkard that people despised and despised. How could he accept this? The only warmth he had was the Fong family. It was the Fong family that gave him tolerance and understanding, the care and concern they gave him. If it weren't for them, he probably wouldn't have lasted until now. Just when I had decided to give up and accept my fate, something like that happened at home, so I could only force myself. I forced myself to go out and walk to a place where there was no one. At that time, I did have the thought of running away. If I couldn't return home in glory, then let me be buried in the Snow Kingdom. But in the end, I still found a chance. This is fate. I can't accept this. The black dragon Li Nanshuan retreated. As he retreated, the spear in Mo Qingdi's hand was also pulled out bit by bit. He swayed, roared, and shouted again and again, I can't accept this. He walked straight past Fang Yan, past Yi Rou, past the little transparent dog. He wanted to go back, wanted to go down the mountain. When he reached the edge of the cliff, his foot slipped, and his head fell towards the cliff. A heaven's favorite fell just like that. Fang Yan and Yi Rou walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down at the bottomless canyon shrouded in clouds and mist. Fang Yan sighed softly and said, He's really dead. He's really dead. Yi Rou said. It was impossible to survive a fall like that. Even if the current Fang Yan jumped in, he wouldn't be able to survive. There was a wound on Mo Qingdi's neck that was cut by the sword. The wound was oozing blood. Fang Yan took out a medicine bottle from his pocket and was about to apply medicine on Mo Qingdi. But he didn't expect that when Mo Qingdi squatted down, the little transparent dog ran over, wagging its tail, and stuck out its tongue to lick Mo Qingdi's wound. Seeing the surprised look in Fang Yan's eyes, Mo Qingdi explained calmly, it grew up eating countless treasures. The saliva and blood in its body all contain strong medicinal properties. Not only can its saliva heal wounds, but it will also not leave any scars after the wound is healed. Fang Yan was overjoyed. He quickly ran in front of Mo Qingdi, tore open his clothes, and pointed at the big and small wounds that were painstakingly cut by the dragon god. He said, Can you let it help me lick them too? Pfft, the transparent puppy looked at Fang Yan in disgust, then spat a mouthful of saliva on his face. Fang Yan wanted to fight it again. Crack, the teapot in Shifu's hand fell to the ground. He looked at the tigress standing in front of him, his lips moving, but no words came out. He exerted more effort before an indistinct voice could be heard. What you said, is it all true? Absolutely true. The tigress's expression was also very ugly. I've sent people to watch the scene. If there's any news, they'll come to me. Moreover, this matter has already spread. I heard that someone saw the dragon god painstakingly ordering the master and disciple to go down the mountain. The dragon god painstakingly admitted that he lost to Fang Yan. Then, what about Fang Yan? Old Master Jiang tried hard to calm himself down. At this time, the Jiang family could not panic. Otherwise, there would be no chance at all. Is Fang Yan injured? I haven't heard. The tigress's answer was a little hesitant. This battle was very covert, no one saw it with their own eyes. Whether or not Fang Yan was injured is just everyone's guess. Just a guess. Old Master Jiang's hand trembled slightly, and said, just a good guess. I didn't think the worst thing would still happen. Master, what else is there? Mo Qingdi is back. The tigress carefully looked at old Master Jiang in front of her, worried that if she said too much, it would stimulate the old man's heart. He's back. I heard that he found Ice Dragon in the land of extreme frost. He brought Ice Dragon back to Yen capital and rushed to the scene of the battle. Mr. Black Dragon appeared as well. The Divine Dragon and Black Dragon are fellow disciples. They were prepared to join forces to destroy Fang Yen Ni Gentle, but at this critical moment, Mo Qing Di appeared with Ice Dragon. I heard, what else did you hear? I heard that he stabbed Mr. Black Dragon to death with one spear strike. The tigress said timidly. Jiang Shifu remained silent for a long time. He had specially met Black Dragon before the competition and promised him great rewards. He had even placed his bets on him. 2 Heavenly Dao realm experts against 1 Fang Yen, and even if Yi Gentle was added, their side would still be able to secure victory. With Fang Yen and Yi Gentle dead, the Fang family would also fall apart. What was there to be afraid of? A family with 3 Heavenly Dao? Old Master Jiang Shifu's voice was inaudible, as though it came from the cracks in the floorboards. Their Fang family is full of Heavenly Dao? Chapter 851. Their Fang family is filled with the Heavenly Dao? The female tigress did not know how to answer Grandfather Zhang's question, although she did not feel that it was her fault for being inarticulate. She could comfort him by saying, no, the Fang family is not filled with the Heavenly Dao. At the very least, Fang Yan's grandfather and Fang Yan's mother are not at the Heavenly Dao realm. However, could such words really have the effect of comforting him? This will be the greatest disaster the Jiang family has ever faced. Grandfather Jiang Shifu clearly had no intention of letting the female tigress answer his question. His head hung low as though he had suffered a heavy blow. The outcome of this battle had exceeded everyone's expectations, and it was truly unacceptable. Master, is there no other solution? The female tigress asked. Even if the Fang family has the 3 Heavenly Dao, do you think they can come to our Jiang family and start a massacre? Hua Xia is a society governed by law. If anything happens to the Jiang family, they will not be able to escape responsibility. Jiang Shifu looked up at the female tigress and asked, do you understand Fang Yen? The female tigress thought for a moment and said, no. I do, Grandfather Jiang Shifu said in a deep voice. He has the intelligence of a fox and the viciousness of a wolf. As long as he is given a chance, he will mercilessly bite off his opponent's neck. If the Jiang family were to land in his hands, do you think he would give them a way out? With such a pack of wolves stalking them, will the Jiang family have any good days in the future? From time to time, one of the descendants of the general family would lose an arm or a leg. How could they go up to them and demand justice? In the long run, the only path the Jiang family can take is to be annihilated. There will always be a way. The female tigress said, gentlemen, you should also take action. There will always be a way to repress him. Don't tell me they can be lawless now. That's right. Jiang Shifu nodded and said, their Fang family can't be lawless. It's precisely at this time that Fang Yen has to keep a low profile. He knows the principle of shooting the bird that pokes its head out, but I wish he didn't know about military operations. I have no idea where eldest young master went. I called him, but he didn't answer, the female tigress said. Forget it. I can't count on him. The descendants of the general family all looked like dragons and phoenixes among men when things were going smoothly for them. Once they encountered a setback, they would show their true colors and would not be able to hold up the pillar. Can I be at ease entrusting the Jiang family to such a person? The tigress didn't dare to get involved in such a topic. Gather everyone in the family for a meeting. Jiang Shifu said aloud. I asked you to visit Shangxin in Huacheng. What happened? Miss Shangxin said that she has been very busy recently. Once she is done with her work, she will definitely make time to visit you, Master. Miss Shangxin even prepared a large number of gifts for me to bring out for you and the other uncles. You're polite and well-mannered. That's impressive. Jiang Shifu cracked a rare smile and said, it wasn't easy for her. If she had come to Yanjing to see this old man at that time, I'm afraid that bastard Fang Yen would have reconsidered his attitude towards her. In the past, no one would have thought that the future of the Jiang family would fall into the hands of this little girl. Master, what do you mean? I don't mean anything. This is what everyone wants. Jiang Shifu waved his hands and said, time makes the hero. Now that things have developed to this stage, I think they should understand the severity of the matter. Go, let me sit alone for a while. I'm afraid there won't be many opportunities like this in the future. Yes, Master. Master. The tigress replied and left respectfully. When the sound of the tigress' footsteps faded away, Jiang Shifu stared at the broken porcelain cup on the ground in a daze. How many years had it been since he had been so flustered and at a loss like today? When did the story start? It should have started from a very insignificant matter. It was so insignificant that he couldn't remember what exactly it was. However, wasn't it those insignificant things that changed history as a prelude? The dignified Jiang family was going to fall into the hands of the Fang family, who had one of the three heavenly Dao. Fang Yan, are you the nemesis of the Jiang family? Some people were sad, while others were happy. This was the happiest day for the Fang family in years. Ever since Fang Yixing died at the entrance of Swallow's Dock, the word smile had become more and more distant from the Fang family. When the old drunkard took his spear and left for the land of extreme cold, he dragged the Fang family into an icy abyss. Even if there were people smiling, the smile was bitter, and it would disappear as soon as it was released. It had never been as comfortable as today, as if every laugh came from the depths of the bones. Fortunately, there was Fang Yan. Whether it was the tragic death of his father or the departure of the old drunkard, he was always there. In his own way, he kept the Fang family from falling, and kept the Fang family from being destroyed. Fang Yan's persistence was meaningful. He had finally seen the rebirth of the Fang family. Lu Wan looked up and down at Mo Qingdi and said with blame, your complexion is fine, but you look a little thin. And the clothes you're wearing, they're dirty and smelly, and you didn't wash them. What animal's fur are they made of? Take them off quickly, I'll get some clothes for you to wear. Thank you, sister-in-law. Mo Qingdi said gratefully. We're a family, no need to be so polite. Lu Wan's eyes were red, and she said, it's good that you're back. Fang Hui's face was red. He obviously didn't drink a drop of wine today, but now he looked like he had drunk half a liter. Yes, it's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. I never dreamed that our Fang family would have such a day. We were about to fall, and the people were about to disperse, but now there's a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. Great, it's great. In a few days, Fang Yan and Wen Raoan will get married, and our Fang family will have another member. 3 heavenly ways, this is something that has never been heard of for thousands of years. We didn't even dare to think about it before. When Qingdi first stepped into the heavenly ways, our village celebrated for a week, and our Fang family secretly celebrated for a month. Do you remember? How many chickens did we kill at that time? How many did we kill? This is the manifestation of our ancestors. I'm afraid they're grinning from ear to ear now. This time, our family must have a good celebration. On Fang Yan's wedding day, invite everyone we can, and call everyone we can. Our Fang family has been in decline for so many years, it's time for us to be high profile. It's all up to you. Mo Qingdi nodded and said. He respected this teacher of his very much. Do whatever you want. Ha ha ha, you don't have to worry about this. I know what to do. Fang Hui said with a smile. He looked at Mo Qingdi with a face full of affection, and said, it's been hard on you all these years, living alone in that cold and treacherous place. It's not hard. With Ice Dragon taking care of me, I lived a good life there. Mo Qingdi had to bring up Ice Dragon again. Before he had met Ice Dragon, his life had indeed been very difficult. It had nothing to do with the level of your martial arts, but it was difficult to find food because you were not familiar with the terrain. Eating a mouse was a delicacy, not to mention those delicious sashimi and ice spring fruits. It was also because he ate so many of those things that his body recovered so quickly, and his body that had been abandoned for so many years could be revitalized in the shortest time possible. Yes, Ice Dragon is the benefactor of our Fong family. He came from afar, and I'm afraid he's not used to our climate and living habits here. In the future, everyone must take good care of him, and let him feel at home. When Fong Hui's eyes swept over Ice Dragon, he found that Fong Yen and Ice Dragon were staring at each other, neither willing to give in to the other. Fong Yen, what are you doing? Fong Hui shouted. You're already a master of the water overflow state, why are you still arguing with a dog? Grandpa, he's not an ordinary dog, he's Ice Dragon. Fong Yen also felt strange. Why was Ice Dragon close to everyone in the family, but only him? When he was at the top of Foam Mountain, he noticed Ice Dragon's strangeness. At that time, Fong Yen didn't think much of it, and simply thought that they didn't get along. When he returned home after defeating the two dragons at the top of Foam Mountain and obtaining the Dragon Balls, this little transparent dog fawned on his grandfather Fong Hui and mother Lu Wan in every possible way, shaking its head and acting cute from time to time. However, it was indifferent to him, and from time to time, spat him with its saliva. Fong Yen really wanted to have a good talk with it. It wasn't good for this little guy to be so rebellious at such a young age, right? I know it's Ice Dragon. Fong Hui also knew that he had misspoken just now. It was clearly his family's benefactor, how could he call it a dog? It was all because it looked too much like a dog. Ice Dragon is a distinguished guest of our family, so you have to take good care of it and find a way to satisfy its needs. Also, the responsibility of taking care of Ice Dragon will be handed over to you in the future. You're the most suitable person for this matter. Grandpa, it doesn't like me. Isn't it inappropriate for me to take care of it? It's precisely because it doesn't like you that it wants you to take good care of it. Why doesn't it like you? Isn't it because you don't like it? Fong Yen, you have to treat this matter as an important task. If I see you bullying Ice Dragon, I won't forgive you. Fong Yen wanted to run away from home again. He felt that his status in the family was lower than that of a dog. At this moment, Mr. walked in from outside. Seeing Mo Ching Di standing in the living room, he squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, Ching Di, you're back? Mr. Mo Ching Di bowed and greeted Mr. It's good that you're back. Mr. patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile. He walked straight to Fong Hui's side and sat down, saying, the children are back. Are you happy now? But Yixing can't come back. Fong Hui said in a sorrowful voice. Lu Wan's eyes became moist again. On such a festive day, how good it would be if Yixing was still alive. Chapter 852. Old Master Fong Hui suddenly mentioned that his son Fong Yixing would never come back. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became heavy. The smile on everyone's face disappeared. Everyone's face was filled with nostalgia and sorrow. Only the little transparent dog shook its head and looked around, not knowing what had happened. Fong Yen walked over and held Lu Wan's shoulder. Mom, today is a happy day. My dad knows in the afterlife. He definitely doesn't want you to be sad for him. If he saw you like this, he would be sad too, right? Lu Wan wiped her tears and said, I'll go to the kitchen and make something delicious for you at noon. After that, she quickly walked to the backyard. Looking at Lu Wan's back as she hurried away, Old Master Fong Hui sighed softly. Lu Wan has suffered. Yixing is not here anymore. I advised her to find another person to accompany her. She's still young, and a lifetime is so long. She doesn't want to. She's a good child. The teacher praised. Our Swallow Dock is a family of martial arts. It's rare to see a child like Lu Wan, who was raised by an aristocratic family. Don't be fooled by his gentle and weak appearance, he's actually very stubborn. Yes. But if she's too stubborn, won't she suffer? Old Master Fong Hui sighed. The teacher took the tea that Fong Yen handed over and took a sip. He squinted at old Master Feng Hui and said, "You shut people up the moment you speak. You've made the atmosphere like this. How can I talk to you as a lobbyist?" Feng Hui looked at the teacher and said, "You're the teacher of Swallow Dock. Everyone has to listen to what you say. Speak. Let's see what the Jiang family wants." The teacher sighed and said, "Why bother? Why did things have to end up like this for no reason? Jiang Shifu called me and said that the two families can sit down and talk peacefully." Talk peacefully? How? Feng Hui sneered. Why didn't they think of talking to our family before? Are you calling us now to talk to us? Besides, my son is gone. Can he make up for the loss of our Feng family? His thick eyebrows danced as he clenched his fists. In the end, old Master Feng Hui was really angry. The white-haired person sending off the black-haired person, this kind of pain would be difficult to diminish no matter how much time passed. The teacher looked at Feng Hui and said, "Jiang Shifu asked me to bring you a message. He said that their condition is, the Feng family can set the conditions." The man turned to look at Feng Yan and asked with a smile, "Won't you consider it?" "Grandpa will decide everything," Feng Yan said with a smile. The teacher nodded, put down the teacup in his hand, and said, "Today is a joyous day for your Feng family, and you should celebrate it well. I'll take my leave first. I don't want to be a nuisance here." "Let's have a drink at noon," Feng Hui said. "Forget it. You are not sincere," the teacher said with a smile. He patted Mo Ching Di on the shoulder and strode outside. Feng Yan sent Mr. out, and the little transparent dog wagged its tail and followed. The teacher glanced at the little transparent dog and asked, "Is this the legendary ice dragon? Don't you think it looks like a dog?" The little transparent dog seemed to like the teacher very much, running over and rubbing its head against the teacher's thigh. The teacher laughed out loud and reached out to pat the ice dragon's head, and said, "Jiang Shifu said that your family has 3 heavenly Dao, but I say, how can it be 3 heavenly Dao? It's clearly 4 heavenly Dao. This is the biggest event in Swallow Fort in the past 1,000 years. We should have held a celebration for you, but your marriage with Miss Yi will only last for 2 days, so we might as well hold the 2 happy events together." "All right, I'll listen to you, sir," Feng Yan answered without hesitation. "Sly." The teacher patted the little transparent dog's head, and said, "The Feng family are all sly, don't be influenced by them." Mo Qingdi had returned, and Feng Yan had entered the water overflow realm. Most importantly, Feng Yan was going to marry a heavenly Dao realm wife. This made Feng Hui overjoyed. Feng Hui prepared to pay his respects to his ancestors. He felt that the Feng family's present glory was all thanks to the blessings of the Feng family's ancestors and Feng Yan's father, Feng Yixing. Feng Hui knelt on a mat, while Feng Yan, Mo Qingdi, as well as Feng Yan's uncles and uncles knelt behind him. The door to the ancestral hall was tightly shut. The Feng family's womenfolk were not allowed to enter. The Feng family has only 1 heir, and their numbers are sparse. Every time I think of it, I'm alarmed. I'm worried that the Feng family's bloodline will be severed, and I'll be the greatest sinner of the Feng family. 100 deaths won't absolve me. All suffering will eventually vanish, and the Feng family's descendants will once again rise to prominence. Feng Yan is about to marry Miss Ye's gentle daughter, and the Feng family will soon have a son. Qingdi has also returned from the land of extreme frost, and he even brought back a dog. That dog is an ice dragon. Feng Yan and Mo Qingdi looked at each other, then Feng Yan whispered, "Does this count as adding a son to the Feng family? Now you know why even the dog hates you, right?" While Yi Ro was reading in her room, someone knocked on the door from the outside. "Come in," Yi Ro called out. She thought it was Yi Fengsheng, because he was usually the most diligent in coming here. Creak, the wooden door was pushed open from the outside, and Yi Daowen walked in with a smile on his face. "Dad," Yi Ro didn't expect it to be her father, so she hurriedly stood up to greet him. "Are you reading?" Yi Daowen asked. "Don't always stay in the study, go out when you have nothing to do. Isn't Feng Yan back?" Why don't you go out for a walk and chat with him? You're about to become his wife, you should communicate more to improve your relationship with him. Yi Ro looked at her father with a surprised expression. She didn't expect her father to say something like this. Didn't he always disagree with the marriage between me and Fang Yan? Even this engagement, Master personally came to be the matchmaker, and the great ancestor personally agreed, so he had no choice but to agree. Did the sun rise from the west today? Yi Daowen knew what his daughter was thinking, and awkwardly coughed twice, and said, Fang Yan is a good child, I watched him grow up. He's very smart, very talented, and the most rare thing is that he's filial. It's not that I don't like him. It's just that the Fang family's luck has been too bad these years, and if you go there, you'll probably suffer, especially in the recent period. Whether Fang Yan could even survive was a problem. Don't tell me you want to marry over and become a living widow. You like Fang Yan, so you have your own persistence. But you're my daughter, I can't push you into the pit of fire. As your father, I also have my own persistence. Thankfully, Fang Yan survived, and Mo Qingdi has returned as well. This is a joyous occasion for the Fang family, and it's also a good thing for you. If you were to marry over at this time, your life would be better. Our Yi family doesn't covet the Fang family's money. Our Yi family has money. Our Yi family also doesn't covet the Fang family's power. Our Yi family has more power than the Fang family. I don't covet anything from Fang Yan, be it the heavenly Tao realm or the water overflow realm. These are important, but also very unimportant. I only hope that he can live well, and treat my daughter well. That's the most important thing. Yi Daowen waved his hand, indicating for Yi Ro to sit down, and said, Read well, it's time to eat in a while. Dad, Yi Ro called out softly. Yi Daowen turned and asked, What's the matter? I've never doubted you, Yi Ro said. Yi Daowen smiled warmly, opened the wooden door, and walked out. Yi Ro sat back in her chair, but she was no longer in the mood to read. At the foot of the dark mountain, there were a few black off-road vehicles parked. In a Toyota, a man with his hands and feet tied up was struggling desperately. His mouth was sealed with tape, so even if he screamed himself hoarse, he couldn't make a sound. His feet were also tied up, so he could only kick the seat of the car with his legs tied together. Bang bang bang, a series of dull thuds could be heard, but no one reacted to it. The man's eyes were filled with despair. Kacha, the car door was pulled open, and a man shrouded in a black robe stood at the door. He looked at the kidnapped man with a deep gaze, and after a moment of thought, he reached out and tore off the tape on his mouth. You deserve to die. After the man gasped for air a few times, he opened his mouth and said such vicious words. In the past, you were like a dog with nowhere to go. I was the only one who didn't despise you and kept you by my side, but you actually dared to betray me. Do you know what you're doing? Do you think they'll forgive you by doing this? Let me tell you, it's impossible. You don't understand Fang Yan, so you don't know what he'll do. He's much more vicious than I am, he'll kill everyone who has offended him. Do you think you still have a way to live? Without it, the only thing left for you is death. You're the same, the black-robed man spoke in a low voice. You're the same as me. We still have more choices. The man looked at the black-robed man and said, If you let me go, the Jiang family will give you a large sum of money. It'll be more money than you can imagine. Go out, don't stay in this country anymore, go to a place where no one can find you, change your face, you can live a life that everyone envies. It's already begun, the black-robed man said. You'll command them to kidnap Qin Etian. Are you crazy? Do you think people will believe this? Why would I do something like this at a time like this? This is clearly suicide, a suicide attack. What you see with your own eyes isn't necessarily the truth, the black-robed man spoke in a low voice. But, who cares? Chapter 853. The winter in Yanjing was getting colder and colder. With every breath, one could see a large cloud of white air rolling in front of them. The white air condensed into ice as soon as it came out, and the saliva that was left at the corner of the mouth turned into fine ice shards. "It's going to snow," the old man said after looking at the distant skyline. The weather forecast predicted that it would snow a few days ago, but the first snowflake hadn't been seen until now. However, no one took its forecast seriously. After all, being accurate was the purpose of its long-term persistence. Chinitian, wrapped in a Tibetan patterned blanket, stood by the railing and looked at the ridge hidden in the cold and gloomy sky. Mu Ying came over with a cup of tea and said, "Miss, it's cold in the mountains. You should go back to your room and rest." Chinitian took the hot tea and shook his head. "I suddenly had some expectations, so I wanted to come out and have a look. You can stand with me for a while. The show is going to start soon anyway." "Miss," Mu Ying seemed to want to say something but stopped. "You don't trust him, do you?" Chinitian didn't even need to observe Mu Ying's expression to know what he was worried about. "Miss, you shouldn't trust him either," Mu Ying said in a deep voice. "What if he doesn't come? What if he brings people to the Jiang family or somewhere else? Instead, he will become a huge threat." "He will definitely come," Chinitian said. "Why are you so sure, miss?" "Because he doesn't live for himself now, but for his family," Chinitian said calmly. "The real him died a long time ago." "I see." Mu Ying nodded. "But there's still no movement outside. It will start soon," Chinitian said. "Go and check again. It's just a formality, so there's no need to act too real. Also, be careful not to hurt our own people. I've already arranged everything and borrowed 2 groups of people from the madam," Mu Ying said with a smile. "Now we're just waiting to catch the turtle in the jar." "No, it's waiting for the rabbit," Chinitian corrected him. Bang! The first gunshot shook the silent night in the mountain forest, and then the gunshots came one after another. "They're here." Mu Ying's eyes lit up. He didn't panic. Instead, he felt a throbbing of joy. "Go," Chinitian said aloud. "Miss, you need someone to protect you," Mu Ying said with a smile. "Have you forgotten him?" Chinitian said with a smile. "With him here, I'll be fine. Go, you still have to take charge of the situation. It would be best if he could make 1 or 2 cuts on his face to add a little more authenticity to the performance." Mu Ying knew that the eldest miss was protected by a mysterious expert. Even he had never seen the true body of this expert. It was said that his strength was unfathomable, and he was a hidden pawn used by Old Master Qin. It was also after Chinitian was attacked in Huaqing that Old Master Qin gave his secret chess piece to Chinitian. With his protection in the dark, those people would not be able to hurt Chinitian. Mu Ying nodded and said, "Then I'll go. I don't think they'll be able to leave alive in front of Mississippi." After saying that, Mu Ying's tall body disappeared into the black shadow behind him. He felt a trace of coldness in the middle of his eyebrows, as if he had been lightly bitten by an ant. Chinitian stretched out his right hand and waited in the air for a moment. Then, a transparent white flower appeared in his palm. The thin figure of the little flower instantly melted, and then turned into a drop of ice-cold snow water. "It's snowing," Chinitian said softly. The gunshots were still going on. The battle was about to ignite, and the killing had entered the most tragic stage. Blood. There was a constant stream of bright red blood flowing out. The dark cement floor, the vermilion gate, the precious grass and trees, the mottled fine sand, and the gravel between the eaves, blood was spreading everywhere. This was a premeditated massacre. Several men in black passed through the layers of sentries and arrived at the gate of the villa. Some of them were experienced, and they quickly opened the gate. Then, a group of men in black quickly rushed in. When the first gunshots sounded, their faces were still filled with doubt and confusion. When they came in, they had received orders that this area was a high-end villa area. The people who could live here were either rich or powerful, and they must not alarm outsiders. Their task was to kidnap the woman in the villa and quickly leave the scene. No matter who, no matter what reason, no one was allowed to use a gun. However, they had just come in. Why did someone break the rules? When they saw the body of one of their companions fall to the ground with a bang, they understood the cause of the matter. They were not the ones who used the gun, but the bodyguards who guarded the villa. Their whereabouts had been discovered. When their companions kept falling to the ground, no matter which direction they fled in, they would be blocked by the corresponding bullets. Only then did they realize that this was a trap. The hostage they wanted to kidnap had already set up an inescapable net in this courtyard to catch them all in one fell swoop. Who leaked the news? When their bodies were lying on the cold floor of the courtyard, when their blood was flowing out of their bodies, their eyes were wide open and they could not figure out the answer to this question. The second group of men in black did not enter the courtyard. They were lying in ambush in the woods at the entrance. Hearing the gunshots in the courtyard, one of the men in black said anxiously, "It's not our weapon. There's an ambush in the courtyard. Rush in." The man in black standing at the front said aloud, "What?" The man in black was shocked and said, "There's an ambush in the courtyard. Why do we still have to rush in? Shouldn't we retreat now?" "Because I said to let you in, so you have to go in." "Leader, if we rush in now, we will die." "Yes." The man in black said, "I want you to die." "Leader." The man in black reached for the pistol in his arms. Screech, a silver light flashed, and the man in black's movements came to an abrupt halt. A thin red line appeared on his throat. The thin line began to thicken, then spread downwards, and finally became a red river. When he felt an itch there and wanted to reach out to cover it, his body was already out of control, and he fell backward powerlessly. Seeing this, the other men in black prepared to counterattack. The silver light flashed continuously. Clang, the man sheathed his sword. Only then did the men in black lay on the ground one by one. Apart from the muffled thuds when they fell to the ground, almost no one screamed or called for help. "We're going to die anyway." The man in black's voice was a bit dejected. He looked up at the floating white flowers in the sky and murmured, "It's snowing. So beautiful." This was destined to be a restless night. It was also the beginning of another big battle. When the first heavy snow of the year fell in Beijing, a murder occurred in a high-end residential area. No, it should be said that it was a failed kidnapping case. A certain terrorist group wanted to kidnap the little princess of the Qin family, Qin Etienne. Fortunately, Qin Etienne was heavily guarded, and his bodyguards fought fiercely to defeat the kidnappers and protect the little princess. Because the incident happened in a high-end residential area, and there were gunshots and screams, the fighting and killing alerted quite a few people. It was impossible to hide something like this, so it was already widely spread in a certain circle on the night of the incident. In the end, it even alerted the higher-ups and became a topic of conversation after tea. I heard that group of people were very powerful, quite a few of them were martial arts masters. How powerful? Is Dragon God that lucky? Dragon God's hard life was defeated by someone else. I heard it was done by the Jiang family. An important member of the Jiang family was captured alive by the Qin family. Shoo, you can't tell anyone about this. The outside world was full of rumors, but only a few people knew the truth of the matter. The Jiang family. Old man Jiang Shifu stood in the courtyard wearing a fur coat. His boots were almost covered in snow, but he still stood there without moving, as if he had turned into an ice sculpture. The Jiang family's children surrounded him, constantly comforting him and even begging him to enter the house. If this continued, the old man's body wouldn't be able to take it. "Dad, you should go in." Jiang Fengyi held the old man's arm and said, "It's too cold today. You've been standing here for half an hour, you'll freeze." Old man Jiang didn't move. He looked up at the snowflakes floating in the sky, but there was no focus in his eyes. "Dad, we know you feel bad, but now that the Jiang family is in trouble, we should work together to think of a solution." How can you hurt your body like this?" "Yeah, Dad, let's go back. There's no such thing as a bad luck in this world, we can always think of a way." "You can't take the cold anymore?" Old man Jiang Shifu finally spoke. His voice was calm, but full of mockery. We Jiang family are becoming more and more delicate. No wonder we were forced to this step. When you were young, I made you read the ancestral behest. You did read it, but it didn't seem to have any effect. Born in a rich family, who can remember the hardships of the Jiang family? After living a good life for so long, who still has a sense of crisis? Dad, Jiang Shifu waved his hand and said, "Prepare the carriage. I'll go to the Qin family to ask for forgiveness." Chapter 854. The first snowfall in Yanjing was ferocious, and it seemed like it wouldn't stop. It had been snowing since last night until this afternoon, which meant that it stopped for about an hour at dawn. Then, God went back to work without rest. As the snow got heavier, there were fewer people on the streets. The untrodden snowflakes covered the pitch-black concrete floor like a gorgeous velvet carpet. Creak, a black car stopped at the intersection of the old street, the wheels rolling up the ice on the ground, making a crunching sound. Clang, the car door opened, and Fang Yan, wearing a light-colored suit, got out of the car. Yi Fengxing turned his head from the driver's seat and said, "Brother-in-law, should I go in with you?" "No need," Fang Yan refused. "You can't park here, so you stay in the car. If you see the police coming to copy the license plate, drive away." "Okay," Yi Fengxing agreed helplessly. "Brother-in-law, be careful." Fang Yan smiled and said, "Did you forget? I'm at the water overflow state now. But I still need to keep a low profile, and don't go around showing off." Pfft, Ice Dragon, who got out of the car, spat at Fang Yan, then immediately wagged its tail and happily ran into the crystal world of ice and snow. Ice Dragon liked snow. Although the snow in Yanjing wasn't as heavy as it was in the Arctic, and the weather wasn't as cold, it was still better than not seeing any snowflakes. Ever since the old man handed the responsibility of taking care of Ice Dragon to Fang Yan had almost never been separated from the dog. When he was ready to go out today, Ice Dragon had already gotten into the car. Fang Yan wanted to drive it out, but Fang Hui yelled at the top of his voice, "It wants to go out for a breath of fresh air, so take it out for a walk. This poor child wants to see snow, can't you satisfy its wish?" Yi Fengxing liked Ice Dragon very much. Seeing Ice Dragon spitting at Fang Yan, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "I just find it strange, why does it always have something against you? Is this the legendary family that can't tolerate two dogs? Do you believe that I won't cut off the fat on your body piece by piece to make twice-cooked pork?" Fang Yan glared at Yi Fengxing coldly and said, "A slip of the tongue, a slip of the tongue. I was going to say that two tigers cannot live on the same mountain." Fang Yan brushed off the snowflakes on his shoulder and said, "I'll be right back." After that, Fang Yan lifted his feet and walked toward the familiar noodle house. Before he got close, he heard a girl's cheerful voice coming from inside. "Brother, don't say that I'm fat. Girls nowadays don't like to be fat. Besides, I'm not fat at all. Recently, I've been exercising to lose weight. Brother, where have you been all these years? We couldn't get in touch with you. I knew you must have gone to do something very important. I asked Grandpa and he said the same thing. Brother, have you ever been in a relationship? I thought the next time we met, you would bring me a sister-in-law. Brother, why are you looking at me like that? Did I say something wrong?" Fang Yan could tell that it was the voice of the girl, Bai Jia. Her long-lost relatives suddenly appeared in front of her. She must be very happy, right? The words that she had hidden in her heart for a few years were like water that had been released from a sluice gate and flowed out continuously. All these years of longing, doubts, and grievances, she finally found someone she could confide in. However, this kind of life was very short. Brother, you won't leave again after you come back, right? Bai Jia suddenly asked. Fang Yan thought for a moment and walked into the noodle house at this time. There were no customers in the noodle house. There was only a man in a woolen suit and a girl in a white sweater sitting opposite each other at a table. Because the atmosphere in the noodle house was very ambiguous, the girl did not wear a coat. The tight-fitting sweater wrapped around her exquisite figure and had the unique health and vitality of a young girl. The girl was staring at her brother's face, wanting to know an answer. When she heard the glass door open, she looked up and immediately jumped up in surprise. She ran over and pulled Fang Yan's arm and shouted, "Brother Fang Yan, why are you here? Can't I come?" Fang Yan looked at the girl's blushing face and asked with a smile. "Of course you can come. It's good to come every day. I just think it's strange that it's snowing so heavily outside." Bai Jie's eyes were full of smiles. It could be seen that she liked Fang Yan from the bottom of her heart. "I will come to see you often," Fang Yan said with a smile. Fang Yan's eyes crossed Bai Jie and collided with the man sitting at the table. The man stood up, rubbed his hands, looked at Fang Yan and said, "What do you want to eat?" "A bowl of sour noodle soup," Fang Yan said. "But my grandpa is not at home." The girl said awkwardly, "How about I make it for you? It's my blessing to be able to eat Miss Bai's noodle soup. My cooking isn't as good as grandpa's." "You can't laugh at me," the girl said with a blushing face. She walked quickly to the kitchen and said, "Brother, I'll make you a bowl of noodle soup too." "Thank you." The man had a gentle smile on his face and looked at Bai Jie with eyes full of doting and pity. When Bai Jie left, the man looked at Fang Yan, made an inviting gesture and said, "Sit down." Fang Yan sat down and the man sat opposite Fang Yan. Just like the sitting posture of Bai Jie and him just now. "If I knew that your family runs a noodle shop and that your noodles are so delicious, our relationship wouldn't have become like this," Fang Yan said aloud. "If I knew that, I would have helped Grandpa take care of this noodle shop at home," the man whispered. Fang Yan looked at the man in surprise and said, "That's good. If you open a noodle shop, when there are customers, you will get up and make a bowl of noodles for them. When there are no customers, you will make a plate of peanuts to go with the wine. It's a world of ice and snow outside, but it's as warm as summer inside. This kind of life is really comfortable and comfortable. Unfortunately, people can't turn back," the man said with a regretful voice. "You missed it, you missed it. No matter how high your martial arts or how deep your cultivation is, it can't make up for it." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I didn't think you would want to see me at this time. Even I find it hard to believe, because I found that the only person I can trust in this world is you." "I believe you," Fang Yan said. "You have experienced too much killing and betrayal, and you are constantly betraying others. It's not easy to find someone you can trust by your side. I have two people to choose from. One is the eldest daughter of the Qin family, and the other is you. The eldest daughter of the Qin family is my business partner, and she is also the person I should ask for payment. However, compared to her, I am still more willing to trust you. She is a merchant. The world of merchants is too shrewd. I don't have too much confidence in them." "Why?" "You are different from them." The man looked at Fang Yan seriously and said, "You are a true citizen of Swallow Dock. Swallow Dock has stood tall for thousands of years. Naturally, there is a reason for its existence. If you think about it carefully, there is also a reason. Apart from me, an outsider who has always been difficult to integrate with, who else has done anything that is shameful to Swallow Dock? The friends around you, they are also your true friends. In the past, and in the future. I can see this, and I am very envious of you. Sometimes, I often think, if I had a friend by my side, a friend I can drink with, maybe my life would be very different." The man didn't continue, and Fang Yan also didn't continue. At that time, Fang Yan had friends, but at that time, he was alone. He ate alone, read alone, took a walk alone, and did everything by himself. And his friends, led by Fang Yan, subconsciously rejected him. They always felt that he was not a citizen of Swallow Dock and was not on their side. However, no one thought that what was originally just a group of children's fun would eventually lead to such a terrible ending. After pondering for a long time, Fang Yan asked, "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to take care of my family." The man said, especially my sister Bai Jia. She is too young and too beautiful. Beautiful girls always attract all kinds of trouble. Originally, I should have done this myself. As her brother, this kind of thing is in my nature. Unfortunately, I don't have the chance. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows and asked, why me? Because I believe in you. The man said, and you have always been doing that. You saw it all? Fang Yan asked. The first time was told to me by the people I arranged here, and the other time I saw it with my own eyes. Aren't you afraid that I deliberately put on a show to lure you out? If it was someone else, would naturally think so. The man looked confident. But that person is you. I won't have that kind of doubt. You are not putting on a show. You are really concerned about her and taking care of her. I saw your expression when you were angry for her. I saw the way you looked at her. You treat her as your sister, maybe it's because you think she is really pitiful. So, the man's voice became hoarse, as if mixed with a vague nasal sound. I beg you, brother, what are you two talking about? Bai Jia came out with 2 bowls of sour noodle soup on a tray. Eat quickly, it won't taste good when it's cold. The man quickly got up and took the tray from Bai Jia's hand, and said reproachfully, don't you know how to take out bowls by bowls? What if you get scalded? Brother, I often help Grandpa with his work. How can I get scalded? You are so stupid. Bai Jia said, rolling her eyes. The man put a bowl of noodle soup in front of Fang Yan, and then put the other bowl in front of himself. He added a lot of chili oil to the noodle soup, and almost poured half the bottle of chili oil into his bowl. Then, he buried his head in the food and began to eat heartily. His forehead was covered with sweat, and his face was red because of the spiciness. His eyes were moist, and then big drops of tears fell into the bowl of sour noodle soup. Chapter 855. Bai Jia took the bowl of noodles into the kitchen. When she came out again, her brother had disappeared. Bai Jia didn't react at the time. She looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Brother Fang Yan, do you have something to do in Beijing this time? Our school has a party tomorrow night. Do you want to go see? Fang Yan shook his head and said, I'm afraid I don't have time. Are you busy recently? Yes. Fang Yan nodded with a smile and said, I'm busy getting married. Huh? The girl exclaimed. She was still a student. The world that she could touch was only the school and this Xiao Xiao noodle house. No one told her about Fang Yan's breakthrough into the water overflow state or the fact that Fang Yan had defeated the dragon god. These 2 things were obviously only known by people who reached a certain level. Bai Jia was just the daughter of a noodle house owner. She didn't know the source of the big news. Recently, Grandpa Long didn't come to their noodle house to eat noodles. She couldn't find out about Fang Yan. Therefore, when she heard that Fang Yan was getting married, the girl had such a big reaction. Seeing Fang Yan's puzzled look, Bai Jia also knew that her emotions were fluctuating too much. She explained with a red face, Brother Fang Yan, you're getting married? When did this happen? Why haven't I heard you mention it before? It's been a while. Fang Yan said with a smile. The wedding is in these 2 days. After a pause, Fang Yan looked at Bai Jia's fair face and said, I won't specially send you an invitation. I'll get someone to pick you up. You should also go and have some fun. Okay. Brother Fang Yan, I'll definitely go to your wedding. Bai Jia's voice was a bit flustered and her emotions were a bit complicated. I'm afraid that we still have classes that day. It's not convenient to ask for leave now. Fang Yan smiled and said, I'll help you ask for leave. Big brother Fang Yan, Bai Jia's nose turned sour. In order to change the topic, she looked around and asked, Where's my brother? Where did he go? Fang Yan looked at Bai Jia and didn't answer her question. Bai Jia's face instantly paled, asking, My big brother, did he leave again? Yes. Fang Yan nodded solemnly. He looked at Bai Jia and said, your big brother still has important things to do. He ate the sour noodle soup you made, so now he is full of courage and motivation. When he left, he told me to take good care of you. Brother, Bai Jia chased him out of the old street. The street was a vast expanse of whiteness. That familiar and warm figure was nowhere to be seen. Big brother, Bai Jia shouted from the middle of the street. The cold wind whistled and snowflakes danced in the air. Her voice was blown away by the cold wind and frozen by the frozen snow. It turned into an indistinct whimper. Big brother, she squatted on the gorgeous white carpet, hugging her head with both hands and crying out loud. There was no end to the long white carpet, as if no one knew when the end of the snowstorm would be. Fang Yen stood at the entrance of the noodle shop, looking at the sad Bai Jia, but didn't know how to comfort her. Big brother Fang Yen, Bai Jia looked at Fang Yen with tearful eyes and said, "My big brother, is he never coming back? Why do you think so? The last time he left, he told me that he would come back soon. This time, he didn't say anything. Not saying anything proves that he doesn't dare to say anything." After old Master Shifu returned from the Qin clan, he gathered all the family members to his study for a small meeting. After half an hour, the meeting was over. However, the faces of the descendants of the Jiang family who came out weren't very good. Obviously, the meeting went well, but it wasn't enough to satisfy these people. Then, old Master Jiang Shifu locked himself in his room alone and refused everyone's request to go in and talk to him. At 3:00 in the afternoon, the old butler by Grandfather Shifu's side pushed open the door and entered Grandfather Shifu's study. Bai Xiu went to the police station to turn himself in. The old butler respectfully stood in front of Grandfather Shifu, looking at the master he had served for decades lying there with his eyes wide open, like a dying patient waiting for the last moment to arrive. His life was limitless, and his achievements were limitless. But he didn't expect that when he was old, he would suffer a crushing defeat. His body once contained a huge amount of energy, and in the old butler's view, that kind of energy could destroy the world. But now, it was being drained bit by bit, and finally became an old man who was no different from other old men. I've asked around. He has information on young Master Junling, young Master Juanxing, and a lot of information on our Jiang family. This information is all fatal, directly pointing out that we have a close relationship with that terrorist organization. The old steward's words were very serious, causing old man Shifu to only blink his eyes. Everything else is easy to deal with. The shameful things that Junling and Juanxing did, that's their personal business. The most fatal is the information in his hands. They consciously dragged the Jiang family into this, wanting to prove that those terrorist organizations were directly supported and covered by the Jiang family. He did indeed get some transfer data from the account in Iceland to the base. Even if we cleaned up the matter in Iceland in time, I'm afraid that the Qin family has already gathered more evidence. They came prepared, and dug a trap for us to jump into. This kind of thing naturally needs to be done flawlessly. Is General Xing dead? Grandfather Shifu opened his mouth to ask. I'm not sure yet. The old butler shook his head and said. I've sent everyone out, and there hasn't been any reply until now. In any case, the police didn't see General Xing's figure, otherwise we would have definitely received the news. Whether he's dead or alive, it doesn't matter anymore. Jiang Shifu's voice was weak as he said, this time, it was the little princess of the Qin family who came to the table. She naturally took the opponent's reaction into consideration. You can't clean up the matter in Iceland. Before they launched this attack, they had already copied all the information there. Master, this is what that little princess told me herself. Grandfather Shifu said with a serious expression, I went to the Qin family, but I didn't see that old friend of the Qin family, and I didn't see Li Xinyan, only this little princess. It was this little princess who represented the Qin family in negotiating with me. The Qin family is obviously willing to accept the results of our negotiations. She's smart, but she's still a girl, so when she plays cards, she likes to hide her cards, and won't bet all her chips at once. This time, they made such a big scene, and didn't hesitate to instigate Bai Xiu to defect. Isn't it to defeat our Jiang family? If we don't lower our heads this time, General Xing will never show himself. A person who won't show himself, how many things can he do while hiding behind the scenes? If that's the case, our Jiang family will never have a day of peace. Master, then now wait. Grandfather Shifu knew what this old partner of his was going to ask. Just wait. Our chance of survival isn't here. The Jiang family no longer has the ability to save ourselves. Jiang Junling can't, the general can't, and those people outside can't either. Our chance of survival is outside, and it's on its way here. Master, why did we lose? Jiang Shifu suddenly asked. Master, the old butler looked at his master in surprise, not understanding why he would suddenly ask such a question. Why did we lose? Jiang Shifu asked again. I've been thinking about it since last night, all the way until now. How did we lose? At 5 in the afternoon, the tigress came back from outside, covered in snow. Jiang Shangxin also came back with the tigress. This girl who had run away from the Jiang family walked into the Jiang family's ancestral home once again. As for the things that had happened in between, neither party was willing to talk about it easily. Along the way, Jiang Shangxin greeted every member of the Jiang family that she met. Her uncles, aunts, brothers and sisters were all very affectionate. However, the way they looked at her was strange, and there was an unconcealable sharpness in their eyes. They are still not satisfied. Jiang Shangxin thought in her heart. Miss Shangxin, master is still waiting for you in the study. The tigress reminded her softly. Jiang Shangxin nodded and smiled. Then let's go in and see Grandpa first. I haven't been back for a long time, and I really miss him. After waving goodbye to Shangxin and the rest, she sauntered into old Master Jiang Shifu's study room in her high heels. When the tigress pushed the door open and entered, Jiang Shifu was resting with his eyes closed. She knocked on the door gently and said softly, Master, Miss Shangxin is back. The moment Jiang Shifu opened his eyes, he was momentarily stunned. Then, he finally reacted. He rubbed his face and wanted to get up from the sofa, but his body fell back down weakly. He was a little flustered, like a person about to drown, unable to grab hold of anything that he could borrow strength from. He was simply too weak and exhausted. Grandpa. Jiang Shangxin hurried over, grabbed the old man's hand, and helped him up from the sofa. Shangxin is back. There was a mouthful of phlegm in the old man's mouth, and when he spoke, it made a loud noise. Grandpa, I am back. Jiang Shangxin said with reddened eyes, I came back to see you. Shangxin, the Jiang family is finished. Grandfather Shifu looked at Jiang Shangxin and said, the Jiang family is finished. You have to save the Jiang family. Grandpa, I am afraid that I can't save them. Jiang Shangxin said with tears flowing down her face. So many people can't save them, I am afraid that I can't save them either. Jiang Shifu smiled and shook his head. He held Jiang Shangxin's hand tightly and said, no one can save the Jiang family, only you can. Chapter 856. The cold wind howled, and snow flew everywhere. The courtyard of the old house had long been filled with a thick layer of snow. If it was in the past, everyone would have already shoveled the snow to one side to prevent the flowers and vegetables planted by old Master Shifu from freezing. However, the house was full of people today, but no one thought of this. Some were drinking tea, and some were smoking at the door. The atmosphere in the courtyard was very intimate, but everyone still felt that their bodies were bone-chilling. They had held a small meeting, or rather, they had listened to someone hold a small meeting. No one had a chance to speak, and the only one who could give orders was the old master. The outcome was very unsatisfactory. He actually had to make such a stupid decision. If he did as he said, what would happen to them? Would the Jiang family still be the Jiang family? The Jiang family is going to fall apart. This was what every descendant of the Jiang family thought in their hearts. They looked at each other and shook their heads. They knew the old master's character too well. Once he had decided on something, it would be very difficult to change his mind. It had to be said that Qin Etienne, the new player, had a pretty good playing style. She was aggressive, and it was impossible to defend against. Most importantly, she didn't care about the minor details. She did her best to hurt her opponent and preserve her own strength. After a series of attacks, the Jiang family was indeed under a lot of pressure. Especially after hearing about the things that Bai Xiu had in his hands, the last bit of hope in the old master's heart disappeared. Shangxin, I know that the Jiang family owes you, and so do I. Old Master Jiang Shifu held Jiang Shangxin's hand tightly and said, but, no matter what, you are still a member of the Jiang family. The blood of the Jiang family flows in your bones, the same blood that flows in mine. Grandpa, I want to help you. I want to save the Jiang family. Jiang Shangxin's face was full of tears as she said, tell me, how can I save the Jiang family? Old Master Jiang was full of smiles and said, I knew that you wouldn't abandon the Jiang family. He let go of Jiang Shangxin's hand, walked to the desk, opened the drawer, and took out a folder. He handed it to Jiang Shangxin and said, take a look. If there are no other comments, sign at the back. Jiang Shangxin opened the folder and took out the information inside. Grandpa, Jiang Shangxin exclaimed, you want me to take over the Jiang family? You are right. Old Master Jiang Shifu nodded. This is the best way, and also the only way. But uncle and uncle, if they could protect the Jiang family's foundation, I wouldn't have made such a decision. Jiang Shifu said honestly. Any one of them can resolve the current crisis. I don't need to make such a decision. Jiang Shangxin family, Jiang Shangxin. Jiang family. Jiang. Of Jiang. Jiang. Jiang family Jiang. Jiang of Jiang. I, Jiang of Jiang. I understand the relationship between you and Fang Yan, and I also understand the feelings between the two of you. I'm not asking you to betray him, because the cost of doing so is too great. The Jiang family has already proven the strength of their opponent. I just want you to maintain your independence. You have to protect the foundation of the general family, which is to protect your own career. In that case, you will have a greater say in Fang Yan. Most women like to rely on men, but there are some women who can be on par with men, or even above all men in the world. For example, Qin Etienne and you. Grandpa, if you agree, you can sign it. Old man Jiang Shifu waved his hand, looking incomparably tired, and said, I still have to tell those good-for-nothings. So that they don't act recklessly and cause trouble everywhere. Jiang Shangxin thought for a moment and signed his name on the back of the document. Let them in. Jiang Shifu said. Jiang Shangxin left and the group of people from the Jiang family entered. The people of the Jiang family came in, and the people of the Jiang family left. From then on, no one was able to enter Jiang Shifu's study. Old man Jiang Shifu sent word that he wanted to have a good rest and no one was allowed to disturb him. When dinner was ready, the old butler went to invite old man Jiang Shifu out for dinner. He shouted for a long time, but no one responded. When he went in, he saw his entire body lying on the floor beside the sofa. His body was bent and twisted, looking like a steamed prawn. He choked to death on the phlegm in his throat. When someone returned, he would walk on the path of glory. When someone went far away, there would be no more news. Bai Xiu went to the police station to turn himself in. If there were no accidents, it would be difficult for him to come out for the rest of his life. Furthermore, based on the things he confessed, he might soon be subjected to the cruelest punishment. Perhaps, to him, that kind of punishment was also a form of release? Bai Xiu used his own death to nail the Jiang family to the pillar of shame for colluding with a terrorist organization. The more serious the crime that Bai Xiu admitted to, the more miserable the fate of the Jiang family would be. Qin Etienne would not give him any chance to regret or betray. All he could do was to continue acting according to the script that Qin Etienne gave him. He was a pawn, a dead soldier. His fate was miserable, and he deserved it. Everyone had their own unique fate. Sometimes, just a blink of an eye could change one's entire life. Fang Yan went to the Qin family's old residence to visit Qin Tian, but the one who came out to receive him was Li Xinyan. This gorgeous and noble woman, who made people feel respect, was not very enthusiastic towards Fang Yan. In fact, she was even colder than the last time they met. Li Xinyan liked to drink coffee. She liked the rich aroma. Gently stirring the liquid in the cup, she looked at Fang Yan sitting across from her and said, "Did you come to say thank you? I am indeed very grateful to the Qin family. If it wasn't for the Qin family's help this time, I don't think things would have been resolved so quickly, and there wouldn't have been such a satisfactory solution." Li Xinyan interrupted Fang Yan's words and said, "You're mistaken. The person who helped you was Qin Tian, not the Qin family. The Qin family did not intend to help you without any bottom line, because this is not the most advantageous choice for the Qin family." "I understand," Fang Yan said with a sincere expression. "You represent the Qin family, so when I see you, I have to thank the Qin family. When I see Yi Tian, I will personally thank her." Fang Yan, Li Xinyan's beautiful eyes thoughtfully looked at Fang Yan and said, "You have achieved success at such a young age. At such a young age, you already have such a high level of cultivation. Soon, you will marry a beautiful wife and become a celestial couple. On the wedding night, during the imperial examination, you have achieved both, right?" Fang Yan was silent. He didn't know how to continue this topic. Li Xinyan sighed softly and said, "Seeing Fang Yan will ruin your entire life. Since you chose to give up in the end, why bother continuing?" Fang Yan opened his mouth, but still couldn't say anything. He stood up, bowed deeply to Li Xinyan, then turned around and walked outside. Li Xinyan looked at his back and thought for a long time, then ordered the servant next to him, "Invite the young lady over for coffee." The servant left, then quickly ran back and said, "Madam, the young lady has gone out." Li Xinyan frowned and said, "It can't be cut, and it's messy." When Fang Yan's car was about to enter the city, it was stopped. Seeing the extended version of the Rolls-Royce luxury car, Fang Yan's depressed mood immediately became better. The roof of the car was already covered in a layer of snow. It seems like this car has been waiting in the snow for a long time. The back door of the car was opened by mooing. A girl wearing a red down jacket, a red wool hat, and a thick towel around her neck stepped out of the car. She stood in the snow, looking even whiter and brighter than the thousands of miles of snow. She waved at Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, let's go see the snow." Fang Yan opened the car door and walked towards Qin Tian. "Why are you here?" Fang Yan asked aloud. "Waiting for you," the girl answered matter-of-factly. "I just went to the Qin family's old house. I wanted to say thank you in person." Qin Tian picked up a snowball from the ground and threw it at Fang Yan. She giggled and shouted, "Come, let's have a snowball fight. You have to be careful, I'm very powerful." Fang Yan was stunned for a moment, then he bent down and grabbed a handful of snow from the ground and threw it at Qin Tian, who was running away. One was running in front, and the other was chasing behind. They were laughing, and snowballs were flying everywhere. It was as if they had no worries. Muing stood next to the motorcade, watching the scene in front of him with a worried face. In this world, there was actually someone who could refuse the young lady of the Qin family. What was wrong with this world? The sky was getting dark, and Fang Yan was finally going back to Swallow Dock. Qin Tian stood next to Fang Yan's car, her gem-like eyes staring at Fang Yan without blinking. She said, "Mr. Fang, I may not be able to attend your wedding, but I've already sent someone to send a gift." Etienne, Fang Yan's heart tightened. This feeling made him feel like he was about to suffocate. Although he was already a water overflow state master, his cultivation couldn't make his heart feel at ease at this moment. The girl's delicate and flawless face looked at Fang Yan. Her lips moved, and she said in a barely audible voice, "You must be happy." Chapter 857. From the 6th of the 12th lunar month onwards, Swallow Dock became busy. This wasn't just a joyous occasion for the Fong family, but for all of Swallow Dock. A sect with 3 heavenly Tao was something unheard of in Swallow Dock, the reclusive leader of the inner pugilistic world. Furthermore, there was an elusive and transparent dog. The people of the inner pugilistic world were all knowledgeable people. They could tell its true strength from its minute actions. According to Swallow Dock's tradition, every time someone stepped into the heavenly Tao realm, the entire village would celebrate for 7 days. It just so happened that Fong Yen was getting married to Yi Ro. The marriage of 2 heavenly Tao realm experts was a joyous occasion that couldn't be celebrated for any length of time. Fong Yan's grandparents came ahead of time. Lu Gong was still thin and lean. He patted Fong Yen on the shoulder and said with a laugh, "Finally, there's someone who can control you. Let's see if you still dare to be so lawless in the future." Instead, it was his grandmother who pulled Fong Yan's hand to a corner and asked softly, "Did Chaoga give an explanation for your marriage with Wenro? I wonder what the child has been busy with recently. She hasn't visited us in a while. Did something happen?" Previously, the general family had been pressing hard on them. The Chaoyan technology that Lu Chaoga represented, as well as the Flower City enterprises that she led, had suffered a huge blow. They could be devoured or disintegrated at any moment. Back then, Lu Chaoga had been abnormally busy and was under immense pressure. She had no way of diverting her attention to visit the 2 elders. It would be bad if they noticed Lu Chaoga's impatient mood. Fong Yen patted his grandmother's hand and said with a smile, "I spoke to her on the phone and invited her to attend my wedding. She said that she's been too busy with work recently and has too many things to handle. However, I'll be heading to Flower City soon. When the time comes, I'll bring her along to visit you." "Fong Yen, what's going on?" His grandmother looked at Fong Yen in confusion. She was confused by the complicated relationship. Fong Yen smiled awkwardly and said, "Grandmother, let me explain it to you slowly." "Okay." Grandma nodded and said, "Don't let the girl down." "I know." Fong Yen nodded seriously. Pitter-patter, the sound of firecrackers rang out again from outside. Zhou Mingli was playing with firecrackers outside with a group of kids from Swallow Dock. Fong Yan's aunt Fong Yijing ran out of her sister-in-law Lu Wan's room and shouted, "Zhou Mingli, you're being naughty again." Fong Yen turned around to stop his aunt and said with a smile, "Auntie, it's okay. Let them play. I'll chase them into the forest at the back." Fong Yijing smiled and said, "There are so many guests at home. It'll affect people's conversation." The last time Fong Yijing came back, her husband Zhou Fan and son Zhou Mingli did not get along well with Fong Yen, which made her feel terrible. No matter what, this was his home. If her husband and son looked down on her home, it would be a slap to her face. However, some things happened later on. His son, Zhou Mingli, was completely subdued by Fong Yen. His husband also realized the depth of the Fong family's foundation. It was a bit unscrupulous, but the Fong clan could prosper under Fong Yan's leadership. As a married woman, she could live with more confidence in her husband's family. "That's fine." Fong Yen did not care about this and said, "Listen to Auntie." Zhou Fan came back with a group of people. It was snowing outside, but his face was red and there were beads of sweat on his forehead. "Unload the goods on the cart. Everyone, be careful. Put the valuables in the house in the backyard. We'll have to carry the burden to the Yi clan. Yi Fengsheng, red cloth. Pay attention to the corner of the cloth. Don't step on it. It'll be wasted if you step on it. Zhu Xiaodan, what are you doing? Put the 2 carps in the tank. Don't let them die. You can't find a bigger carp. Ruan Jing, come and help carry these steamed buns." Zhou Fan was Lu Wan's assistant and also the housekeeper of Fong Yan's wedding. If Lu Wan was too busy or it was inconvenient for her to show up, he would bring a group of young people to help. "Uncle, sit down and have a cup of tea," Fong Yen said. I'm not tired. Zhou Fan waved his hand. The big day is getting closer and closer. Everything has to be prepared. This is the biggest event in life. We can't be careless. We can't be careless. Without saying anything to Fang Yan, he turned and ran to the backyard. Mo Qingdi accompanied Fang Hui to entertain the guests. The teacher and some respectable elders of Swallow Dock were drinking tea and chatting in the room of the old man. From time to time, Fang Hui's hearty laughter could be heard. It seemed that the old man was in a good mood. Everyone was busy except for Fang Yan himself. Fang Yan was the groom of this wedding, but he was the most leisurely person in this wedding. On the 7th of December, more guests arrived at Swallow Dock. The current headmaster of Rosefinch Secondary, Zhong Dei, and the former headmaster of Rosefinch Secondary, Zhang Xiaofeng, came together. Li Mingxiang, the former dean of Rosefinch Secondary and the current vice-headmaster, also came together. He grabbed Fang Yan's hand and refused to let go. With red eyes, he said, "Mr. Fang, I haven't seen you for a long time. You're not here. Everyone is fine when you're not in Rosefinch." Baldy, Fang Yan's confidant, also came. Baldy came with his girlfriend. Baldy and Liahua from the logistics department of the school confirmed their relationship. It was said that they were ready to get married at the beginning of next year. When Fang Yan saw Baldy, he gave him a big hug. Baldy, who was wearing a suit and tie, couldn't stop shaking. He stammered that Yan Jing was too cold and he wasn't prepared. Liahua looked simple and seemed to be a good woman who lived at home. She just looked at Fang Yan and grinned, but didn't dare to greet Fang Yan. Xiao Meng also came. She came on behalf of Lu Chaoga. She brought Lu Chaoga's gifts, a set of keys to a villa in Yanjing and a Ferrari car key. The villa was bought a long time ago, and even the decoration had been completed. The car was ordered from abroad before, and it could be delivered on the day of the wedding. Lu Chaoga was considerate. When Xiao Meng saw Fang Yan, she wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. She whispered, "Mr. Fang, I think Headmaster Lu." "What's wrong with Headmaster Lu?" Fang Yan asked. Xiao Meng thought for a while and said, "I think she might be a little uncomfortable." Fang Yan thought for a while and said, "I'll talk to her on the phone again." "Okay." Xiao Meng nodded with a red face and said, "Mr. Fang, congratulations. I wish you a long life together and 100 years of happiness." "Xiao Meng, I also wish you find your Prince Charming soon." Fang Yan patted Xiao Meng's shoulder and said with a serious face. Xiao Meng nodded again and again, but there was a trace of melancholy in her heart that was difficult to dispel. On the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, the sky was still dusky, but the giant beast of Swallow Dock had already woken up. Countless people woke up from all corners and then rushed to the Fang family or the Yi family. Today's wind and snow were even stronger, and it was also the day of the wedding. On the auspicious day, the man would go to the woman's house to marry the bride. Because the Fang and Yi families were adjacent, 8 sedan chairs were used for the wedding. According to the plan, they had to circle around Swallow Dock before entering the Fang family's gate. The sky was still bright, and Fang Yan had already been pulled up by his great-aunts. A group of people put on all kinds of makeup on his face and body. This was even more nervous than when he faced the dragon god. Then, a group of people blew and beat, lifted the sedan chair, returned to the carriage and horses, welcomed the sedan chair, alighted from the sedan chair, worshipped heaven and earth, performed the ceremony of marriage, and entered the bridal chamber. The whole process was tedious and festive, and Fang Yan became a puppet without consciousness. Other than giggling and being manipulated, he had no consciousness of his own. According to the previous discussion between the Fang and Yi families, the Yi family would hold a banquet to entertain the guests in the morning, and the Fang family would hold a banquet to entertain the guests in the evening. Otherwise, if the two families held it at the same time, the neighbors of Swallow Dock and the guests from outside would be too busy to know which family to go to. Fang Yan thought it made sense. If the two families held it at the same time, each family could only receive one congratulatory gift. Of course, with Fang Yan's current net worth, he didn't care about this, but it was still necessary for more people to gather together and be lively. The Yi family's daughter was getting married, and the Fang family's Fang Yan was getting married. This was a big event in the eyes of many people. Du Qing, who had just been released from prison, came. This burly man hugged Fang Yan tightly for a while, then laughed and stuffed a big gift box into his hands. The tall and beautiful Li Ya stood beside Du Qing with a smile on her face. The tall and skinny Fang Haohan stood beside Li Ya with a silly smile on his face. Compared to before, Li Ya's attitude towards Fang Haohan had improved a lot. In the past, she would directly chase him away, but now she only treated him as if he was invisible. Fang Yingying also came back alone. The policewoman he had his eyes on had officially entered a relationship with him, but their relationship wasn't strong enough. As the spring festival was approaching, it wasn't convenient for him to bring a girl home for the festival, mainly because the girl was unwilling. Fang Yan sighed in his heart. How could the relationship between his two little martial nephews be so bumpy? Summer came, and at the same time as summer were the two young ladies, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. The arrival of the three of them caused a commotion in Swallow Dock. After all, there were fans in every field. Summer was originally a celebrity, and as the Arasima group became more and more popular, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin also became more and more popular with the audience. Yuan Lin looked at Fang Yan with a face full of smiles and said, "Mr. Fang, congratulations. I didn't think I would have to say this to you so soon." Jiang Qin forced a smile. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. She stepped forward and hugged Fang Yan, and her eyes instantly became moist. Fang Yan gently hugged the girl's increasingly mature body and said with a smile, "I know you are very busy now. I'm very happy that you can come. No matter what, I have to come," Jiang Qin said in a low voice. Then, when no one was paying attention, she ruthlessly bit Fang Yan's neck. She was worried that leaving a lip mark would be bad for Fang Yan, so she quickly gave up such an action. Summer sighed softly and said, "It's been hard on these two girls. I don't even know if it was the right decision to bring them out back then. If they stayed by your side, would it be better?" Fang Yan looked at Summer and said with a smile, "How can there be such a thing as if in this matter?" Summer sighed softly and pulled Yuan Lin and Jiang Qin toward the women's lounge at the back. Other than Jiang Zhulu, the important figures of the other three major clans of Flower City all rushed over. The Lan clan sent Lan Mountain Valley, the Lu clan sent Lu Shu, and the Mei clan sent Meingshui. There were also some rich and powerful clans of Flower City who wanted to build a relationship with the three major clans or rely on their relationship with the three major clans to build a relationship with Fang Yan. From now on, Fang Yan's words would carry enormous weight in Flower City, and no one would be able to compete with him. Tangxing came. After Fang Yan left Rosefinch, Tangxing also dropped out of school and went to the open land in the northwest to train. This time, he also rushed back from afar for Fang Yan's wedding. Chiba Sun also came. She came with Du Qing and Li Ya. With Du Qing's care, she should be able to find the life she wanted in Flower City. Gong Sun Qi came. Gong Sun Qi's gift was the demon-slaying sword that Master Dragon God had worked hard to obtain. Master said that the sword is a weapon of murder and is not suitable as a wedding gift. But we don't care about trifles. This sword is called demon slaying and has the meaning of slaying demons and devils. Master said that this sword is a good sword. This sword fell in your hands, and I hope that it will rise again in your hands. Fang Yan quickly took the sword and thanked Gong Sun Qi again and again. He said that after the wedding, he would go with Yi Ro to thank Master Dragon God. The young chief also came. He first went to the Yi clan, then to the Fang clan. After sitting down and drinking a cup of tea with old Master Fang Hui and Master Fang, he bid farewell to the newlyweds. He was busy every day, and it was a great honor for him to take time out to attend a wedding. All the important figures of the Yi clan had returned, especially the second and third sons of the Yi clan, who held high positions outside. The guests who came to congratulate the wedding were all high-ranking officials and celebrities, and the convoy lined up from Swallow Dock to the outer ring of Yanjing City. Jiang Shangxin had sent her trusted aide to the Jiang family, and the news of Jiang Shangxin becoming the helmsman of the Jiang family had already spread. However, because old master Jiang Shifu had passed away, the Jiang family was also holding a funeral. According to tradition, people in mourning were not allowed to attend other people's weddings, so Jiang Shangxin explained this matter to Fang Yan in advance. Fang Yan naturally expressed his understanding. He knew that Jiang Shangxin was a smart woman, and smart women always knew what was needed. When Jiang Shangxin took over, the Jiang family was no longer a threat to him. Qin Dongling from the Qin family came. Qin Dongling was Qin Etienne's uncle and also an important figure in the Qin family. He was giving Fang Yan a lot of face by sending him a gift. There were friends of Fang Yan and friends of Fang Yan's friends. There were even some people from the inner world who came under fake names, saying that they were there to witness the biggest event in the inner world. The marriage of two heavenly Dao realm experts was something that had never happened before in the inner world. Ho Zhendong, the martial arts fanatic, came, clamoring to compete with Fang Yan again. Lin Puyang, the flower fanatic, came as well. Fang Yan asked him to help carve the flowers. Lu Shuiyun, the music fanatic, came as well. She was the guest performer for the wedding. Fang Yan's monk and Taoist master came as well. The Tao master didn't come, but he wrote a match made in heaven calligraphy for Fang Yan and got someone to send it over. There were guests that Fang Yan knew, but most of them were guests that Fang Yan didn't know. This wedding connected the business, political, and martial worlds. When people talked about it, they called it a miracle in the history of wedding ceremonies. The sky was gloomy, and the land was like a brocade. Qin Etienne, who was dressed in a red gown, stood in front of a huge floor-to-ceiling window. She looked at the howling wind and fluttering snow outside, pondering for a long time. She held a glass of red wine in her hand. In the past, Qin Etienne didn't drink alcohol. Most of the time, she would drink milk or fruit juice. However, her mood today clearly wasn't suitable for that. She didn't stay at her Fragrant Hills villa because it was too cold. She didn't return to the Qin family mansion because she didn't wish to speak. She was even more afraid of being consoled by others. She didn't want to go to a bar or a coffee shop. She didn't want to go anywhere. She stood there for a very, very long time, so long that Mu Ying, who was behind her, was worried that she would be frozen into an ice sculpture by the wind and snow just a window away. Is it there? Qin Etienne extended a slender finger and pointed in a direction. The question was baffling, but Mu Ying knew the answer. He nodded and said, "Yes, it's there." Qin Etienne tried her best to look in that direction, but the wind was too strong and the snow was too heavy, blocking her vision. The distance she could see was very limited. "Why is it so dark over there?" Qin Etienne asked. She was referring to the edge of the city, where there was a road leading to Swallow Dock. The road leading to Swallow Dock had just been repaired, but there were no street lights. The more remote the area was, the fewer lights there were. Because, Mu Ying opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to explain. He knew that Miss Qin knew the answer to this question. "There must be light," Qin Etienne said. Mu Ying thought for a moment and said, "Yes, I understand." Mu Ying took out his cell phone from his pocket and made a call. Soon, in front of their eyes, under their gaze, a long line of light spread toward the edge of the city. It was the result of all the businesses under the Qin family and those related to the Qin family turning on their lights at the same time. In the farthest darkness, a firework flew into the sky with a long tail. Pa! The firework bloomed high in the sky, stunning the entire night sky with its colorful colors. Crack, crack, countless fireworks rushed into the night sky at the same time, as if there were countless flowers blooming in the sky. It was overwhelming, lively, and prosperous. A smile finally blossomed on that flawless face. She said softly, the liveliness is theirs. I have nothing. Chapter 858. Red Wall. Mystic Department. The fragrance of tea wafted everywhere, but no one lifted it to drink. The young chief looked at the old man sitting opposite him and said in an extremely respectful tone, "Sir, are you really going to let him go just like that? Aren't you going to reconsider?" Sir laughed out loud and said, "You speak as though it's a huge piece of fragrant steamed bun. Back then, I didn't want to enter, but Elder Zhu pulled me in. Now that I'm leaving, are you not going to let him go?" The young chief looked at the old man apologetically and said, "I heard from Elder Zhu that back then, you had the chance to step into the heavenly Tao realm, but your mental barrier was to sever all ties with the mortal world. You weren't willing to return to seclusion, so you retracted the foot you had taken. This delay lasted for dozens of years. The country owes Swallow Dock, and even more owes you. It's all fate." Sir smiled and waved his hand. With a nonchalant look, he said, "It's fate that they were born in Swallow Dock. It's also fate that I became Swallow Dock, sir. I was at fault regarding Bai Xiu's matter. I had long wanted to resign, but it was an eventful period for Swallow Dock. Now that peace has returned, I naturally have to leave. I'll use the remaining time to plant crops and pick up dung. Who knows, if I have no desires, I might be able to take that final step before I leave." Sir sighed lightly and said with a regretful tone, "I've practiced martial arts all my life, but I can't go in and see what that world is like. I still feel indignant. I won't hold you back if you wish to leave, sir. But do you have a successor in mind, sir? This time, sir, you have to help keep a close watch." "I originally had my eyes on Fang Yan," the teacher said aloud. The young chief laughed and said, "The person I originally had in mind was Fang Yan, but it proves that the person you like now isn't him, right? How did that kid make you angry?" "I had a conversation with him a few days ago," Sir said. "He wasn't willing?" "He didn't say he wasn't willing." Sir smiled helplessly. "He ran away from home," Wang Yao said. "What?" This time, even the young chief was shocked. "Ran away? When did that happen?" "Forget it, don't worry about him." The teacher waved his hand again and said, "This kind of immature, steady, and irresponsible man would not be able to bear such a heavy responsibility. I have another candidate in mind." "Who is it?" the young chief asked. "Don't underestimate the enemy," the teacher said. "Do you think he's suitable?" The teacher nodded with absolute certainty and said, "There's no one more suitable than him. If he hadn't perished in the battle with the dragon god, I wouldn't have accepted Bai Xiu. The position of master should have been his 26 years ago." The young chief thought for a while and said, "Since you think it's possible, then don't underestimate the enemy. He didn't run away, did he? Leave him to guard the door. Even the dog he brought back ran away." Mr. praised, "From this, it can be seen that the Azure Dragon, don't underestimate your enemy. You are a mature, responsible man. You are worthy of such a great responsibility." The young chief slapped the table and said, "That's him. I'll call him and ask him to come see me." Monsieur grinned, as if he had done a great thing. Fang Yan did run away. Not only did he run away, but also his grandfather Fang Hui, his mother Lu Wan, his wife Yi Rou, and Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. There was also a dog. Fang Yan didn't want to take the dog, but the dragon didn't get out of the car. Fang Hui glared at him and asked him to go out for some fresh air. So Fang Yan had to leave a seat for him in the car. Ever since his grandfather Fang Hui became crippled, he had never left Swallow Dock. When Fang Yan's father Fang Yixing was still alive, Lu Wan and her husband would go on a trip from time to time. After Fang Yixing passed away, Lu Wan had never gone out of the village in recent years. Moreover, since Fang Yan and Yi Rou were newly married, they should go on a honeymoon or something, right? So Fang Yan and Yi Rou discussed and simply drove a big car to the south. They had fun along the way, and they would go wherever they went. They would let his grandfather and mother relax and see the scenery they had never noticed along the way. They went all the way to the south, and their final destination was Huaqing. This was the happiest trip Fang Yan had ever had, and it was also the most comfortable days for him in so many years. In the past, Fang Yan had a heavy responsibility and a blood feud, so he had to be careful and try his best every step he took. Your bitch can't hide your ugliness. You are lonely like a dog on a cold night. This was the true portrayal of Fang Yan. Fang Yan was lonely, even lonely. No one was more tired than him, but he tried hard to smile. He wanted everyone to feel that he was a happy person when they saw him. So Yi Rou liked him, Qin Etian liked him, Lu Chaoga liked him, Phoenix liked him, Jiang Qin liked him, Yi Fengsheng liked him, Li Xiaotian liked him, and many other people liked him. He was a fun person, and it was interesting to be friends with such a person. Wasn't that enough? Life was so f***ed up, so why did he have to put on a bitter face? Lu Wan was happy to see Fang Yan smiling like a child, and she secretly wiped her tears a few times. Yi Rou understood her mother-in-law's feelings and held her mother-in-law's hand tightly to comfort her every time. Life would get better, and the days would get sweeter. That was what everyone in the Fang family thought. When the car neared the boundary of Huaqing and reached the exit of the highway toll station, they found more than 10 luxury cars parked outside. All of them were Bentleys, quietly leaning against the roadside, looking luxurious and low-key. After Fang Yan paid the toll, the railing was put down, and the doors of the Bentleys opened at the same time. Whoosh! One by one, men and women in luxurious clothes walked out of the cars. The leader was the big boss of Qingyun Corporation, Du Qing, and his goddaughter, Leah. After he got out of the car, he paused for a moment. Then, Lu Shumi from Lanshan Valley signaled for this group of rich heirs to come out of the car. An unusually eye-catching woman also got out of the car at the same time. She was Jiang Shangxin, the current helmsman of the Jiang family. Fang Yan had never expected her to appear in the welcoming crowd. Following behind them were some forces that were attached to Qingyun Corporation or the few big families. They also tried to find a chance to be familiar with him. They heard that this most powerful young man in Huaqing had the habit of slapping people in the face. They thought that if they accidentally offended him in the future, he would at least show them some mercy on account of their previous meeting. Du Qing wanted to invite Jiang Shangxin and Lanshan Valley to walk in front. According to the strength of his disciples, they were far more powerful than his Qingyun Corporation. However, how could Jiang Shangxin and Lanshan Valley not know that Fang Yan and Du Qing were as close as brothers? In order to save his goddaughter, Du Qing surrendered himself to the police. In the end, he gritted his teeth and did not say a single bad word about Fang Yan. If he couldn't take it, Fang Yan would have been arrested and sent to the police station. How would he have the chance to seek help from the Yen capital? Hence, under the gaze of the toll booth staff and some passing drivers, a group of people walked towards a Buick MPV that was slowly driving out. Fang Yan stopped the car by the roadside and rolled down the car window to look at Du Qing and the rest. He smiled bitterly and said, "Is it too high profile? We were also worried about this, so we reduced the number of people several times. In the end, those who could come were those who couldn't be reduced anymore. If we reduced them any further, we wouldn't be able to come. Moreover, they were given the same cars and didn't drive too many sports cars. It seems to be considered low-key, right?" Jiang Shangxin saw the speechless look on Fang Yan's face. She smiled and said, "You and Miss Yi are on your honeymoon, and it's the first time that Old Master and Auntie Lu have returned to Huaqing in so many years. As the younger generation, we have to do our part, right?" "Exactly. If not for the fact that we didn't want to disturb your mood, we would have gone to the Yen capital to welcome you." Lanshan Valley laughed out loud. It felt so good to bet on the right treasure. Everyone is a family, and we don't have to be so distant. However, I still have to thank all of you. Fang Yan looked into everyone's eyes and said, "Besides, it feels good to be so ostentatious. It's not bad to come once in a while. Everyone laughed. Old Master Feng Hui and Lu Wan got out of the car to express their gratitude. Du Qing held Old Master Feng Hui's hand and said, "Old Master Feng, we have already arranged dinner. Shall we drink with you tonight?" "No." Old Master Feng Hui waved his hand and said, "2 glasses is not enough." Everyone laughed again. Ever since the rise of the Feng family, the depression in Old Master Feng Hui's heart was swept away. Now, he was especially spirited and even looked younger than before. Jiang Shangxin and Li Ye's public relations target was Lu Wan, and they tried their best to show concern for her. On the contrary, Yi Ro was given the cold shoulder. Actually, it was mainly because no one dared to go near her. Yi Ro's personality was no different from before she got married. She was indifferent and had an expression that said, "I'm very cool and no one should talk to me." Fang Yan liked this about her. Not everyone could live a peaceful life like her. After accepting Du Qing's invitation, everyone went to have a welcoming dinner. After the dinner, Lan Shanggu said that he had already prepared accommodation for everyone. Yi Ro said, "There's no need for that, Fang Yan has a place in Huaqing." Lu Wan looked at Fang Yan and asked, "You bought a house in Huaqing?" "No." Fang Yan looked awkward and said, "It's that. I used to stay with someone else, it's clean and spacious. Let's stay there tonight." Yi Ro made her decision. When Lu Chaoge received Fang Yan's call, she was also shocked by this decision. She had never panicked like this even when she was being pressured by the Jiang family. She said anxiously, "Fang Yan, are you sure you want to stay here? Or do you want me to book a hotel for you?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "It's better to stay at your place. There are some things I should let you know." "Okay." Lu Chaoge's voice trembled slightly. When Fang Yan drove his family over, Lu Chaoge was already waiting at the door. Feng Hui saw Lu Chaoge and said with a smile, "Good girl. It's been hard on you." Lu Wan went forward and held Lu Chaoge's hand and said, "Sorry to bother you." "Don't mention it." Lu Chaoge was a little nervous. "Just treat it as your own home." Yi Ro and Lu Chaoge looked at each other and then walked away from her without any expression. Fang Yan walked to Lu Chaoge and said, "It's been hard on you." Lu Chaoge's eyes were red, but she quickly recovered and said softly, "I'm actually very happy that you can come, I thought this day would never come." Fang Yan held Lu Chaoge's hand and said, "Let's go in." The family sat down in the living room. The servants were busy making tea. Lu Chaoge stood in the middle and introduced the room arrangement. "Mr. Fang lives on the east side of the 3rd floor, where the air is the best. Aunt Lu lives on the west side of the 3rd floor, where it's convenient to enjoy the moon. Miss Yi and Fang Yan live on the 2nd floor, where Fang Yan used to live. You're pregnant." Yi Ro glanced at Lu Chaoge's belly as if nothing had happened and said softly. The living room fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at Yi Ro with their eyes wide open, and then shifted their attention to Lu Chaoge. Miss Yi, you're pregnant," Yi Ro said again. His attitude was one that would not stop until his words shocked everyone to death. "It's Fang Yan's, isn't it?" Lu Chaoge's face was pale and she couldn't even speak clearly. Yi Ro yawned and said, "I'm tired. I'm going to bed." After that, she got up and went upstairs. Feng Hui was stunned for a long time. He looked at Yi Ro's back and then at Lu Chaoge and grinned. "Good kids, all good kids, I'm old and can't stay up late. Hero, help me go upstairs. I wish the red flag will fly all over the world, and I'm afraid that even the sea of fire and the mountain of knives will rush forward. I can't wait to turn the flying snow into spring water." Lu Wan looked at Lu Chaoge and asked anxiously, "Chaoge, is what Wenro said true?" It's not true," Lu Chaoge denied. "Chaoge." Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge and said, "Just say it like it is. Don't hide it." Fang Yan, Lu Chaoge's eyes turned red and big tears flowed down. She said, "I don't want to." It's different from what I thought. I don't want to bring you any trouble. How about I go abroad? I'll take him abroad. We can go far away, and no one can find us. No. Lu Wan said resolutely. You're a woman, and now you're pregnant. Where do you want to go? You'll soon get pregnant. How can you take care of yourself at that time? Besides, if it's our child, we still have to bear the responsibility. Lu Wan pinched Fang Yen and said, Fang Yen, what a good thing you've done. Say something. Fang Yen looked at Lu Chaoga and said, You didn't go to Yanjing this time. I know you're hiding something from me. When Xiaoming talked to me, she wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. I've already guessed some of it. I've talked to Wenro about our things. Today she offered to live here and pointed out the fact that you're pregnant, which shows that she wants to accept this child. You don't have to go, and no one else has to go. However, you have to put aside your work first. You can't work as hard as before. Have a good rest in the future. Lu Wan nodded repeatedly and said, Yes. Yes, have a good rest. I'll stay and take care of you. Thank you. Lu Chaoga choked with sobs and said, Thank you. Lu Wan's eyes also turned red. She held Lu Chaoga and said, Silly girl, why are you saying thank you? It's us who should thank you. Our Fang family is sorry for you. There's a charity event at 10 o'clock this morning. Mr. Buffett and Mr. Bill will also attend. There's an economic conference at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Premier Zhang specifically invited you to attend. You have to fly to Bo Ao at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You have a 15-minute speech at the GCE conference at 8 o'clock. The woman in the white uniform raised her head from the magazine and said, Cancel all the activities in the afternoon. But Premier Zhang, let Mr. Lin go on my behalf. Yes, Mississippi, the secretary knew this young lady's style very well. If she said she would go no matter what. If she said she wouldn't go, she wouldn't go. Even if the premier invited her, she wouldn't go. But miss, do you have any schedule in the afternoon? The woman smiled and said, I'm going to see someone secretly. Is that person more important than the premier? Of course, the young woman said without hesitation. The car stopped on Maple Avenue. Qin Etian, in a white windbreaker, opened the door and got off. He said to Muing, You can go back. Withdraw all the people in the dark. Miss, for your safety, do you still need to worry about my safety when I'm with him? Muing thought for a moment and gestured for the secretary to stop. He then got into the Rolls-Royce and left. The leaves were yellow and withered, and the ground was covered with maple leaves. The sound of high-heeled leather boots clicking on the leaves was like the sound of Qin Etian's happy mood at the moment. It was another autumn. Qin Etian liked autumn because the scenery in autumn looked golden and was a festive color. Ding, his phone rang in his pocket. Qin Etian took out his phone and saw a message, Dragon's Reverse Scale. Qin Etian's lips twitched and he replied with 4 words, Touch it and you'll die. Pa, a young man jumped down from the tree and said, The password is correct. Queen, please give me your mission. The mission is to go shopping with me. Qin Etian reached out his hand and said. The young man walked over and held Qin Etian's hand. Hey, what did the female overlord say when you came out? She said that although she can ignore what she doesn't see, you shouldn't go too far. Who wants to ask someone else's husband out 7 days a week? I don't care, Qin Etian raised his head and said, she was the one who came to me and asked for a deal. She said that as long as I can help you defeat the generals, she'll turn a blind eye to what happened between us. Does she want to go back on her word now? She didn't go back on her word, it's just that she's pregnant, so it's inevitable that she'll be a bit emotional. She's pregnant? Yeah. Qin Etian took Fang Yan's hand and turned to leave. Where are we going? Why should she get pregnant before I do? I don't accept this, I want to get pregnant too, and, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.